That would mean we're set to go. Good to see so many faces in the gallery. Welcome to the regular meeting of Lacombe City Council, Monday, September 23rd, 2024. I'll call the meeting to order. Everyone, you've had an opportunity to review agendas. With respect to the consent agenda, do we have any items that you'd like to see removed at this time? Councillor Hibbs.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. I'd like to remove the CAO monthly report as well as the Water and Wastewater Commission minutes. And I would move that the consent agenda be adopted as amended.
Thank you. Did anyone else have any items that they'd like to have open for discussion? Very good. Please go ahead and vote. That is unanimously accepted. Thanks, everyone. And then for the overall agenda. Just before we do consider any motions under request for decision, I've got as much a clerical adjustment as anything. I'd like to reverse items 6.2 and 6.5. 6.5 must be considered prior to 6.2, so reversing those two numbers would be the easiest rather than getting everything out of order. Certainly if there's any other items. Councillor Connick.
I would so move that we adopt the agenda as amended.
Thank you. Did anyone else have anything? Very good. So to the mover, there was one other item for amendment that I'd like for consideration. Item 3.2 under open forum. We have an individual here to speak with us on construction trailer parking issues. Is that okay to insert that as well? As amended still holds. Very good. Anything else? Please go ahead and vote. And I believe that was unanimously in favor as well. At least I saw all green. There we go. Thanks, everyone. And Councillor Hibbs, as you know, our CAO is not here with us. Our regular CAO is not here with us this evening. However, we have acting CAO Piché. So we'll keep that in mind if there's any specifics. Hopefully she's able to answer them. But please go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. Yes, I appreciate that we have acting CAO, but that makes it more fun. No, I'm kidding. So it's just actually a question, and it's fair if you don't know the answer and you need to come back with it. It's the very last page of the CAO report, so that would be page 8 of the agenda package. Where it references the the risk factors, I guess, of the city of Lacombe. Not overly helpful just at face value. So I was just wondering if there could be some explanation as to, what that tax base balance means. Like, I think I know what it means, but I just think that would be going forward definitely beneficial if there was a little explainer that came with that, because an average citizen is certainly not going to know how to read that. And I think that would be beneficial if you could go through that or come back with that.
CAO Piché.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. To Councillor Hibbs, absolutely. I think that is very wise. We will definitely bring that back at the next CAO report. Thank you.
That was successfully dodged, but understandable. And thank you for bringing that up. The next item was the North Red Deer River Water Services Commission minutes from June 17th.
Sure, and this was just a matter of clarification. So I did notice, because of the minutes, that we did not actually have a representative at that meeting. However, I do believe, unless I'm mistaken, that I'm still the alternate rather, for that committee, and I did not get a notification to attend that. So I don't know if there's a process breakdown there, but going forward, if you're not able to attend those meetings, I am definitely prepared to do so. I do get the packages ahead of time, and I could have participated. It's just unfortunate I didn't know.
I agree. That is very unfortunate. We'll strive to do better in the future. Thank you. And the wastewater commission, or no, I'm sorry. It's actually a misprint on our agenda. So I believe that one was to be wastewater, and you wanted those.
That is true,
removed.
and only just because they're both related to each other. So I guess if there aren't any other questions in that area, I could move that we adopt those or accept those minutes as presented. Oh, it looks like there's another question.
Councillor Hoekstra.
Thanks, Mayor Creasy. Councillor Hibbs had pulled out the CAO report, but I too wanted to speak to it. And but it is very similar to the same comment. Could we have an explanation for all of those comments under the City of Lacombe 2023? I think some of them make sense, but I wouldn't mind more than the tax base balance that there be an explanation for all the factors that are listed there. I had those questions, so thank you very much, Mayor.
Our acting CAO will be sure that that is put in line for our next meeting.
I have
So
noted
that-
that. It'll have more information for you guys.
Appreciate that. Thank you. Councillor Hibbs, you wanted to make a motion?
Sure, because those are not accepted, I guess, because we pulled them out. I would go ahead and I guess accept those as information in this case.
Thank you. On our machines right here? Is that item earlier? No. Okay. We'll just give IT a moment to add those to the voting machines. That motion rather. And while that's being considered, the next item of business will be the open forums. And I believe that we have with us Dave and Lena Morin here on a tax late fee or a property tax late fee item. We do have a motion to consider here first, but if you'd care to make your way up to the front seats if you're here and get comfortable, we will get to you shortly. Very good. So those items that were removed from the consent agenda are there for acceptance. And if the wording pleases the mover.
Just one minor correction. It says regional and it meant to say river on the second one, but otherwise it's exactly as I was intending. Yes.
Thank you very much. We'll consider that a clerical issue and have that cleaned up for the minutes. However, you can please go ahead and vote. So that is unanimous. Those items can be included as information in the package for the minutes. Thanks, everyone. So I guess just briefly, Mr. Morin, Dave, you're given 5 minutes to speak to council as a whole. Keep in mind if there's any time for questions or whatnot, that is included in there. So whenever you are ready to start, just go ahead and do so, and the clock will be running.
Okay, sounds great. Yes, property taxes. I was late on my property tax, and It's quite an amount, the penalty. So I was hoping that, first of all, the first offense is, the first penalty is 10%, which I thought, holy cow, that's quite harsh. And then it drops down to 3%, which I'm really not, and that's fine. I'm not fine, but so what I was hoping that because I've always paid my taxes on time. I think there was only one other time that I guess I was late. I didn't realize in the 20 years that I've been paying taxes. So in this time, when we saw this, I was like, wow, that's quite a bit of money to paying for a penalty. That 10% right off the start. So we were hoping that we could, because we are pretty good at paying on time all the time, and that we would, that you could lower that for us, or get rid of it would be nice, or lower the penalty for our property. We have actually two properties on Two Spruce Close and then our other rental property. So, but I do have, my question is, how come is so much at the first penalty, 10%? That's quite a bit of, there's quite a penalty right at the start, 10% for, I guess, all homeowners of Lacombe that miss paying or like late paying. Basically, that's what it was. It was late. It's not like I didn't pay. So it was just a late payment by a few days. So I guess that is my question to council. I'm good. No, I'm done. Yes,
Okay.
I'm good.
Very good. Appreciate that. And to be perfectly honest with you, I don't think you're going to find a whole lot of disagreement that 10% is not inexpensive on either side of this table. However, there are some factors that I think we need to consider. And I'm going to start off by giving our acting CAO an opportunity to address that question first off.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. In terms of the 10% rate, it is set by council through the tax bylaw, I believe. And I'll be honest, I don't know 100% why it's that rate. We will have to come back with some information for you. If there's a difference of a rate, we would have to definitely bring that back to council for a decision.
Thank you. So I guess one thing to consider that the amount that you are assessed on your property taxes is for that calendar year, which doesn't really become due until the end of June. So as much as I know it's only a few days, you're thinking that you're late, it's actually 6 months and a few days. So that's the consideration for that amount. I know that doesn't ease the pain any, but that is really how that came about. If any council member has a life vest to throw me, feel free to speak up. Councillor Hibbs.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. Just speculation, because I have not had a chance to look up when we discussed this last. I know we did discuss it because, especially during COVID, I believe we had revisited some of those penalties just given circumstances. So I don't want to 100% speculate, but I would say that my guess would be that the idea is that it needs to be fairly steep to encourage payment, because we really do rely on that. Something that isn't understood by the average resident is in cases of like things like education levy, which we collect on behalf of the province, it's not ours, obviously, we actually like prepay that. So even if we don't collect it from the residents, we actually have remitted that. So it's really important that we encourage residents and business owners, anybody that's a ratepayer, to pay those taxes on time. It's unfortunate. I feel really bad that you missed the deadline. I do feel like we do a really good job of reminding people. So that is really unfortunate, but that would be my guess. And I'm just throwing a lifeline here to Mayor Creasy, but that would be my guess. And I'm sure that we could find out a definitive answer as to the history possible that we are just following a lot in line with other communities as well. I would hazard a guess that that is probably as well, but I think the main reason for that is just incentive.
Thanks, Councillor Hibbs. So I guess it's important for you and other members of the public to realize there are a few options available, both for ongoing monthly payments, which is basically a prepayment on a portion of the year that you may want to consider. And yes, in future, I know it hurts. The unfortunate reality is when an exception is made for one of these, other jurisdictions have shown it to be that they are far more numerous in years following, and it's just traditionally is not something that council entertains. Not to say that it can now, and any councillor is free to make a motion however they see fit. But I can tell you, it would be unusual. That's
Okay. Yeah, no, okay, that's fair. I thought I would give it a try anyways, you know. I mean, I don't understand the 10% still. It just seems really harsh for you know, the first time, you know. I mean, other bills, I suppose, if you look on them like ATCO or any kind of power bill, I believe it's only 2 or 3% if you miss payment at the first. So I didn't know the bylaws until now, and I went, holy smokes, 5%, you know, wow, or 10% right at the beginning.
right.
Why is it 10? I get it to encourage payment. Yes, I do. I do understand that, and I do understand the whole system about education, you know, payments and all that. I do understand all that, but still 10% right at the beginning seems quite harsh. In my, I guess.
Obviously, we've got your contact information, and I will have CAO Gowdy direct him to give you a call if there's any more information that we can provide, and let him take it from there as well.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
All right. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate your time, Mr. Warren. We do have 2 open forums this evening. The next item is Mr. Makinga with a construction trailer parking issue. Mr. Makinga, if you'd care to make your way up to the front now, please. Take whatever time you need to organize your notes and get comfortable there. And I just have you turn the microphone on with the red light for the benefit of everybody watching at home and behind you so that they may hear you. And whenever you are comfortable, you may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and council members. I'm here to raise my frustration on getting a ticket. It's not my first one, for leaving my construction trailer unhooked on a job site. I have a 20-foot tool trailer that I take to the job sites when we're renovating or whatever the case may be. And there's times that I have to go get something, so I unhook my trailer, I pick up supplies. In this particular case, we're making a run to the landfill site because we're taking siding and softening off of a residence. And the bylaw officer, I guess, seen my trailer unhooked and gave me a ticket. And then she's going to issue me a second one. So I'm just very frustrated. I mean, it's a small business. I'm not the only one. There's other people as well that we're trying to make a living. The trailer is fully insured. I gave the bylaw officer, I dropped a copy off of my insurance at the city this morning because that was one of her concerns. It's not insured. My trailer is fully insured with a $2 million liability, and it's allowed to be detached. So I'm very frustrated with this. Mr. Mayor is aware of it. I've been talking to him in the past over some of this issue as well. And I would like the city to either give direction to the bylaw officer, if it is a construction trailer, not to look the other way, but use a little bit of common sense, please. That's all I'm asking. I understand your trailer bylaws. I'm not opposed to it, but I am opposed to if I'm trying to make a living. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Makinga. So I think it would be a stretch to say that this bylaw came into being because of construction trailers. I would suggest that it's more geared towards abusive use of parking for primarily recreational vehicles. And I tend to be a little more lenient with what you suggested for when it is a work site. I would hope that there either was not appropriate space or the conditions wouldn't allow you to park on the lot, which would be preferable for a lot of reasons. One of which is taking up time to come here this evening, which I don't expect is a huge joy for you either. So yeah, rules are rules and they're for a reason. However, in this particular instance, I feel as though there is room for some interpretation. And I'm not about to off the cuff come up with some sort of way to make it, to facilitate it for our officers. But surely we can come up with something that allows some leeway for construction trailers when there is no other option to make use of on-site or on-lot parking. Councillor Gullickson.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. I agree. I thank you for bringing this forward. I think this needs to be revisited so we can look at potentially, as long as it's not parked there for 24 hours or something like that, but during the work day, you should be able to unhook and travel to get parts or tools or whatever you need. But we need to have some kind of schedule. So if you leave it overnight, different story. So I'd like to see us make some adjustments to that bylaw to allow for construction trailers to be there on a temporary basis. Thank you for bringing it forward.
Acting CAO Piché.
Thank you. Sorry. Thank you, Mayor Creasy. There is a clause in the bylaw that does speak to some authorization of that. The area that it does say in section 5.11, section A says no person shall park a trailer or recreational vehicle upon any highway unless the trailer or recreational vehicle is attached to a vehicle by which it may be propelled or drawn. And when so attached, the trailer or recreational vehicle shall be deemed part of the vehicle and subject to the regulations pertaining to the vehicles, unless authorized by written order of the CAO or Chief Administrative Officer. So by making a request, it is possible to get some authorization to be able to park without.
Thank you. Certainly appreciate that information. Something for consideration by council for sure. Councillor Hibbs.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. Guess I would echo largely what Councillor Gullickson said. I would not want to see anybody play fast and funny with the bylaws as currently written. So I don't want to hear anything about looking the other way. However, what you have brought forward is worthy of consideration. I am interested in possibly having that better spelled out in the bylaw so that it's not up to the discretion of the CAO, but it is in fact written into the bylaw that there potentially could be allowances for daytime use of a trailer being in place as long as it's securely placed there, because of course not everybody's very good at dropping a trailer and making it so that it's not a hazard. So I think that that's worth looking at, and I suggest that perhaps administration might be looking at that, or there could be a notice of motion, which I'm not prepared to do this right this minute, but I think that's a very interesting idea, and I appreciate that you came to bring that to us.
We get to pile a whole bunch of stuff off on our CAO, and I think in this case it might be appropriate that he be in contact with Mr. McKinga, and if directed by council, that this bylaw be brought back with some options or somewhat of a review anyway. Is anybody prepared to make some sort of a motion in that regard? Our administrative assistant was right on top of that. Couple of things that we could consider that council requested administration return the matter to council with a support request for the decision on the construction trailer parking request. or that council request administration provide additional information or follow up through a request for information on the construction trailer parking request. So there's two possibilities for your consideration, or alternatively make up one of your own. Councillor Hibbs.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. I would move that council request administration to provide additional information or follow up through a request for information on the construction trailer parking request.
Thank you. Any additional discussion on that item? Councillor Hoekstra.
Thanks, Mayor Creasy. My only comment, I don't know if I misheard or some, I do hope that each individual business does not have to request this, that it would be written in a general way that Mr. Makinga, but also other businesses would know that between 9 to 5, they can have their trailer unhooked or for some reason. That would be my hope in this response.
And I think that was certainly the expectation, that it be brought back for more information, perhaps a review, as opposed to a case-by-case item. No, and that's fair. Anyone else? Very good, then I will call the vote. I believe that was unanimously in favor. Mr. Makinga, someone from administration will be in contact with you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. What do I do with this ticket? Can I burn it or?
Well, not what you suggested that I do with it. How's that grab you? No, just hang on to it for the time being, and administration will be in contact with you within the next week to 10 days, and we'll take it from there. How's that sound?
Sounds very good. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yep.
Council members.
Not often we get 2 open forums. Anyway, we do have some individuals here from ATCO we're pleased to have. As our senior manager of the Red Deer operations, gas and pipelines, Kyla Bellick, welcome. Please come on up, and I understand you've got some team members here. Your field supervisor, Brad Marciniak, is here, and Bruce Bain, the supervisor of service. And to round out the team, from transmission and pressure control is Dave Weinkoff, supervisor with transmission and pressure control. So good to have the whole team here. And just so we keep everyone straight, I'll have you introduce yourselves as you're speaking, and whenever you're prepared, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Brian Bain, I'm the service supervisor.
Dave Weinkoff, I'm the supervisor of pressure control and transmission.
Kyla Bellick, senior manager. Recognize a few faces as I was with ATCO for 12 years, left for 12, and now I'm back.
Perfect. All right. How do we skip ahead?
So just so I'm not confused.
Yep.
Are we short one member? Or there was only ever intended to be 3?
Only ever intended.
I was led astray. Okay, very good.
Skip ahead to this. Thank you for allowing us to come and present tonight. The franchise agreement is an agreement between ATCO and the city of Lacombe. The municipality grants ATCO certain rights to provide natural gas distribution service to customers. ATCO commits to terms and conditions under which it will deliver natural gas service within the community. ATCO has served the city of Lacombe since 1945. The city is served by the ATCO office located in Red Deer and in Pinoka. The current franchise agreement with municipality expires at the end of September of 2025. The current agreement remains in place and in effect beyond the term expiry until the agreement is terminated or renewed. The franchise agreement is based on a AUMA template developed in 2003. The new version of the AUMA franchise agreement template was negotiated and approved early 2015. Sorry. So the agreement terms, it's a minimum 10-year, maximum 20-year term with an end date. The agreement continues in effect after the end date unless renewed or terminated. Note, if the agreement is not renewed or terminated within 1 year after the term ends, the franchise fee paid to the municipality is halved and the other half held in an interest-bearing trust account until the agreement is renewed. The franchise grants ATCO exclusive right to install pipe in municipal right-of-ways for the purpose of delivering gas to customers. Municipality commits not to grant similar rights to another company for the term of the agreement. ATCO agrees to bear full responsibility of the distribution system and ensure all services delivered in the municipality are in accordance with ATCO's delivery tariff. Franchise fee is for exclusive use of municipal right-of-ways for installation of ATCO's natural gas or distribution system. Current fee in the city of Lacombe is 29.75% of the revenue ATCO earns delivering gas in your community, excludes commodity cost of gas. Franchise fee is collected from customers in the city of Lacombe via Rider A on the monthly bill. Franchise fee can be adjusted annually. The AUC prescribed cap for franchise fee is 35%. Core and extra services outlines core services provided by ATCO, requires ATCO to annually report specific service levels to the municipality, for example, reliability, customer satisfaction, public safety, includes provisions that the municipality can request extra services from ATCO, or Schedule B, provided under a separate agreement. Costs for extra services collected only from customers of the municipality. Municipal taxes offers an opportunity to collect linear taxes in addition to the franchise fee. Currently, the city of Lacombe does collect separate linear taxes at 2.5% of the revenue ATCO earns delivering gas to your community. Again, excludes commodity cost of gas. The municipal tax is collected from customers in the city of Lacombe via Rider B on their monthly bill. ATCO to provide the municipality with plans showing locations, excluding depths, and alignment of the gas distribution system, excluding service lines and installations on private property. ATCO is to cooperate with municipalities' fire department to provide necessary equipment for the operation of ATCO's curb boxes and service valves. For maintenance or construction maintenance of the gas system, plan and notice requirements for municipal approvals, restoration requirements, emergency repair notifications, requires that ATCO obtain approvals from other utilities, including facility locates, and as-built requirement for major work. ATCO will relocate its facilities in the municipally owned property, example, streets, lanes, to accommodate municipal work at our cost, provided the municipality provides 1 year notice, provides a suitable alternative location, considers ATCO's costs in the determination of the relocation request, and that the city is not acting as a land developer. Distribution system expansion. ATCO will extend its distribution system to provide service to customers at no cost to the municipality under its AUC approved terms and conditions of service. This includes extending distribution mains to any customer at no cost to the customer, where the municipality has extended its sewer and water infrastructure. Any increase in municipal boundaries. So franchise rights and obligations automatically extend to all areas annexed by the municipality if annexation size is less than 640 acres or 25% of the current size of the municipality. For larger annexations, the municipality has the option to add the increased area to our franchise area or terminate the agreement. Joint use of municipal right-of-ways allows the municipality to use the right-of-way granted to ATCO Gas for a municipal purpose as long as it does not interfere with our use. ATCO can allow others to use the right-of-way with the approval of the municipality. Agreement encourages joint trenching. Since 1912, our customers have counted on us to deliver safe and reliable natural gas. Today is Alberta's largest natural gas distributor. We serve more than 1.3 million customers in almost 300 communities. Our commitment to safety, respond 24/7 to natural gas emergencies, respond daily to service calls from customers, meter installations, appliance inspections, repairs to our natural gas lines, and ongoing inspection of our distribution system to prevent leaks and ensure integrity. Any questions?
I have one from Councillor Dallas.
Thank you. I had about 5 questions, actually. Maybe would you like me to be very selective or run through them?
That is completely up to you.
Okay, thank you very much. I guess I'll just start at the top of the presentation where they went. The very first question is in regards to if the agreement is not renewed or terminated within 1 year, the franchise fees is halved with the other half held in interest-bearing trust account until the agreement is renewed. So that means if the agreement is not renewed, funds are relinquished to ATCO Gas or they are returned to the municipality.
Not actually sure I know. The intent of the clause, I'll say, is to bring us to the table so we can at least discuss what is going to happen, whether you guys are interested in discontinuing it or renewing it.
Sure.
But I don't specifically know what we would do with those funds.
Okay, thank you. Second question. The franchise fees that are collected, I know I see my energy bill and it says franchise fees. Is there an administration fee from ATCO for collecting and doing technology as well as providing staff labor to collect and then repay it to the city of Lacombe? Would that be?
I believe that, like, basically we would do that for all customers and communities paying franchise fees as a part of our business. So really it would go to ratepayers, our ratepayers as ATCO.
Sounds good. I guess this one is maybe more of a contract issue that would have to be worked out with the city, but do you guys know if you have timelines for responses included in there? So I'm thinking about working around high pressure gas lines when work comes up, municipalities submit requests to work on that, and then you also have to supply a worker to be present most of the times. Is there a certain amount of time, or is it basically municipality asks and then that agreement is put in place right away and the worker is supplied at our convenience or at your convenience?
So just to be clear then, is this in the event of an emergency or a leak, or?
So this not necessarily anything regarding ATCO. Municipalities do work on the ground, and anytime it's within 30 meters of a high pressure gas line, in order for the municipality to do the work, they have to have clearance from ATCO. So
appreciate that clarification.
Yeah, so in specifically to transmission lines, we follow the AER's rules in response to the customers. So if you do request, like let's say a crossing agreement or whatever that is, we're required to respond to you within 72 hours to say we've received your request.
Okay.
Our goal is to process that request within 30 days. And then once the request is granted for the crossing, we again, when you contact us, we have 72 hours to respond to say, yes, we've received your request and we're booking this day to come and do the crossing with you and supply an operator to help.
Okay, sure. So 36 days to respond, basically. There's another section in here about the city acting as a developer and requesting movement. I think it's highly unlikely, but I guess I'm just curious. There's 2 other clauses in there for a year's worth of notice, and then as long as we're being responsible with the cost to ATCO. Curious why ATCO is interested in limiting the city's ability to develop, or at least that's how it reads.
Which clause exactly?
Sure, sorry. So ATCO will relocate its facilities and municipally owned property to accommodate municipal work at our cost, provided the municipality provides 1 year's notice, provides suitable alternative location, and considers ATCO's costs in the determination of the relocation request, and is not acting as a land developer.
Yeah.
So
if you were acting as a land developer and a competing private land developer was also acting on that, maybe same thing. If the city got free relocations from us and that developer didn't, that would cause an unfair situation where you would basically have an up on development within the city.
Sure.
So basically, we're just trying to keep it fair and even.
okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And last one. I guess, I don't know if you probably don't want to answer this, but are there other competitors in this business space, or is it basically the municipality would have to take over this role?
So there is a clause about first refusal and first refusal around it. So basically, the municipality would then have to purchase the system from us. You would then operate the system. If you decide that you want to then, like, this isn't for me, I'm not a gas distribution company.
Yeah.
We would get the first right of refusal to purchase it back from you.
Okay.
In the clause. So I guess kind of in saying that, like, you have choices, I guess, but we're kind of looking to operate it.
Sounds good. Thank you. And that's all of them. Thank you.
Certainly. Councillor Gullickson.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. I have questions regarding safety and service. How far does the area go now for service from the customer service personnel in the area? How far are they away on call? You know that?
For this particular area?
For this area, yeah. For our area. Like, they cover an area quite large now in comparison to what they used to. So I understand they go to Rocky Mountain House on the west. And how far east do they go?
Far east is our ATCO territory.
So all the way out to Provost. So and how many servicemen do we have in our region?
Honestly, yeah, I'd have to-
4 or 5.
4 or 5, and that includes Panoka, Rimby, and Rocky Mountain House too? No, they're separate. 6 with Rocky. Okay. So you're relying a lot on the fire departments then to address a lot of the emergencies, is that correct?
So that is only counting our service.
Yeah, I understand. You have your distribution people also out of Red Deer that would respond, but they don't respond to all gas orders. They respond to hit lines. But I'm just wondering if you're relying more on the fire departments to help respond to these events? And if you are you providing them additional training? Like for us with the volunteer fire department, that additional training would be very helpful because ATCO would not be on site to assist them with, say, CO calls or gas odor calls or so on. So is there additional training being provided by ATCO, or are we just relying on them with HOTEP training?
In the past, we have done fire department training sessions or.
Are you continuing that? I'm aware it was done in the past, so I'm just wondering if it's still happening.
As recent as this year, we did them in the city of Red Deer. That was lined up through their training officer, fire department in Red Deer. as far as Lacombe.
Okay. I mean, that scares me, and you know why. All of you know why it scares me, because I'm well aware of the dangers involved here. And so I would think that the fire departments should get additional training from ATCO to respond to these events, because you certainly are relying on them to go for all kinds of it. It's CO calls, for gas odor calls, for hit lines, and all of those different incidents that ATCO has specific training for. These volunteers do not. So I think there's some risk involved, and I would like to see ATCO do more training for the fire departments if we're relying on them that much. That's just my 2 cents worth on this. It's nice to see you anyway, if nothing else.
Certainly food for thought, and something that we can bring up with our chief of fire services to consider, and has to be brought up to date on the training that they do have and offer. Anyone else? That was reasonably easy. No scary questions. Was there anything else you'd like to add?
I appreciate the opportunity to be here.
Well, we've enjoyed a positive and ongoing relationship with ATCO for an awful long time here, and have no reason to expect it won't continue. We appreciate you coming out here after hours and speaking with us. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
No, 4.2. And next up, we have presentation on our fleet pilot program, a 1-year report, and we've got Indy Ayula, the client strategy manager, here with us from Enterprise Fleet Management. Come on up. And along with you is Brandon Gillis, the client strategy manager. Welcome to you both. Take a moment to get your materials in order, and a reminder to please use the microphone when you speak for the benefit of everybody watching at home and behind you. And whenever you are ready to go, the floor is yours.
Council. Members of City Council, thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to come here and present today. Seems like yesterday that me and Jordan were having these conversations, and almost a year has gone by, and you've had a promotion in the meantime, so congratulations to you. But my name is Indy. This is with me here, Brandon. We've both been with Enterprise for almost 10 years, whether it was through our management training program to the rentals, to being branch managers, and now we're with Fleet. But we've had the pleasure for the last year to run a small pilot program. And we're here today to share with you guys the results of the pilot program, and ultimately request to expand the pilot program just a little bit further. But really what we want to do today is as efficiently as we can, kind of cram in the analysis that we've had over the past year, and kind of give you an insight in terms of how we look at fleet and the data that we use to help lower overall cost of ownership when it comes to running a fleet. So that's going to be our goal today. Obviously, we'll have some questions at the end. There's going to be a lot of material. So if something really doesn't make sense, feel free to just stop one of us, and we'll dive a little bit more into it. Fair enough? Perfect. So jumping right into it, very quick agenda. We're going to talk about the client experience, in terms of what Enterprise does that sets us apart from everybody else when it comes to fleet management. Give you a quick market outlook, talk a little bit about the fleet summary and recommendations, and then ultimately what the next steps are and what our hopes are to expand the pilot program a little bit further for this year. So one of the things that we really pride ourselves on is customer service. We understand that it's not just a one and done, where, when I met with Jordan a little while ago, that kind of meeting continues. We just want to make sure that we're providing up-to-date results as quick as possible, and results that are going to help the city. One of the ways we do that is annual meetings. So the first one is a fleet analysis meeting, which me, Jordan, and Brett over at facilities have went through. Basically, what we do here is we review the annual replacements. We want to be proactive. Reason being is order banks, for example, for most manufacturers are opening up at this time of the year. we want to get that order in as early as possible to make sure that we're lowering the acquisition cost overall. And we want to do hold analysis, and we'll get into that as well. However, on the annual client review side of things, we want to see that, okay, well, these are the recommendations we've made. How are these recommendations playing out for the city? Do we need to make any tweaks or adjustments going forward? So again, we make the recommendations, we see how they play out, and then we want to reaffirm that those decisions and strategies are still the best going forward. And that's what we do in our annual client review. So first off is market outlook. A lot of this information shouldn't be too new, but we just wanted to go over some of the data that we're seeing on our side. So the first thing we're seeing is acquisition. So cost of vehicles gone down a little bit. You probably noticed that dealerships are starting to have some more inventory. And a lot of that is because the market and the supply chain issues relatively are starting to ease up and go back to pre-pandemic levels. Another big factor in lowering acquisition cost is incentives. So some of you may be aware, when you're doing a factory order, meaning ordering directly from the factory, you as a government entity are entitled to incentives, meaning this is the invoice cost minus what your incentives are getting. Now, Enterprise, we've actually partnered up with Sourcewell and Canoe, meaning whatever price we're getting the vehicle from the manufacturer is the price that we're giving for our clients. Normally speaking, on a commercial side of things, if you guys were commercial clients, we have a markup on the vehicle of whatever we're getting. But on the government side, it's exactly the invoice cost minus the incentives. Now, just to kind of give you the idea on the incentives, when Jordan and I first started this partnership, and right after that kind of pandemic era, incentives were next to nothing. We were seeing maybe $1,000, $2,000 off, but nothing really when it came to what it was pre-pandemic. As of today, for the city of Lacombe, the incentive for GM, for example, is $13,500. Meaning if you order a half ton from a manufacturer, GM, it's whatever the invoice cost is minus $13,500 off of that invoice price. So that's really going to help drive down acquisition cost. And we're seeing that across the board. Fuel, unfortunately, is just the cost of doing business. Obviously, being a city, yeah, you have bulk fuel pricing, so we're not going to get too much into that. The other thing I wanted to bring your attention to was the remarketing side of things. That's the resale of the vehicle. Now, this is our bread and butter, and I'll show you how the equity in your fleet is actually going to continue to help lower cost of ownership. But naturally speaking, when there's more vehicles available, the resale is also going to start to normalize a little bit. And over the last year, we've seen that drop about 9.3%. Now, one of the other major costs that has continued to go up, whether it was pre-pandemic or not, is maintenance costs. Last year alone, we saw an increase of 20% year over year when it came to maintenance costs. Now, that's a shortage of parts, shortage of labor. There's still some supply chain issues when there are recalls, for example. So we're starting to see that kind of hold true about 20% year over year. And then insurance premiums, again, welcome to Alberta. And it comes to funding, that is still at about 70%, 70 basis points there as well. Now, the next thing I wanted to show you was, when we sat with Jordan and Brett, we wanted to, okay, well, they had some questions. How, what kind of analysis can we show here? So there's a few different things we want to go over today. So the first thing is a present value analysis. We'll show that towards the end, basically comparing, hey, if you were to purchase a vehicle with cash and compare it with the lease, does it still make sense to purchase cash or not purchase cash? We also want to compare a dealership purchase to one of our leases and overall the pilot approach to the program. Now, just to give you guys a little insight, this is the City of Lacombe's fleet profile. Some of it may come as a surprise, some may not. But what we're seeing here is out of the 40 vehicles, 39 vehicles that the City of Lacombe operates, about 50% of those vehicles are 10 years or older. Now, some of those vehicles aren't really giving you any problems. They're the old reliable vehicles where you don't have to sink money in. You can leave it for the summers. The students are driving it. It's not costing you a lot of money. A lot of these vehicles in this 10 years or older, however, are missing a lot of safety features that are now standard. Backup camera in 2018 was introduced as a standard safety feature, which a lot of these vehicles don't have. Automatic braking system, again, a standard feature, 2018 and beyond. A lot of these vehicles don't carry it. But there's not a lot of kilometers being driven, right? So overall, the average odometers for all the city vehicles were sitting at about 54,000. Predominantly Chevy fleet, so about 59% of your fleet is Chevy. Holding years is 15 years. You're probably thinking, what the heck is holding years? So basically what it's doing is it's taking the total fleet that you have and divided by your average annual acquisitions over the last few years. And saying that, hey, if you guys continue with the current replacement strategy of holding a vehicle till the very end, it's going to take you about 15 years to refresh your fleet. And that's what the holding period shows right there. But good news is you do have some equity in your fleet. So out of the 40 vehicles, you just have over $500,000 worth of equity. And we're going to show you that, hey, okay, well, you already have equity. How can we use this to your advantage and continue to lower costs overall? Now, to give you guys a meat and potatoes and a high level view of how we look at a fleet is the effective life cycle. Enterprise Rent-A-Car, for example, does this model really well. And now what we've done on our side is we've scaled it down and we've customized it for our clients. So the way we want to look at a fleet is we know that, okay, well, depreciation is always the highest at the very beginning of a life cycle. As the vehicle gets older, depreciation cost of that goes down. The two costs that tend to go up over time is your fuel and your maintenance. Just like we were talking about, we've seen 20% of maintenance costs alone. A brand new vehicle, if you compare it to the previous model, is about 3 to 5% more fuel efficient. So if you have a vehicle that's 10 years old, 11 years old, if you compare that to a new vehicle, the cost savings are quite significant. On our side of things is, hey, well, before the vehicle is fully paid off and before these costs start to creep up, what is the best time to replace this vehicle? Now, in the government side of things, during the pandemic, one of this cycle was 1 year. Right? Reason being is a vehicle was still relatively cheap. You could find it. If you guys remember, insane sale prices or resale prices for used vehicles was just through the roof. So a lot of our government clients actually made money on the vehicles because we were recommending a 1 year cycle. Now, as the market starts to shift, the optimal time starts to shift as well. And now we're seeing it, generally speaking, about 3 to 5 year, but we'll show you for the city of Lacombe what we're going to be recommending. Now, key points here, like we mentioned a little bit earlier, factory order, right? If you go to the dealership, you're paying MSRP plus a little bit of a markup. When you go to the factory, you're paying invoice minus incentive. So that's going to be one of the first ways to reduce your acquisition cost. The next one is the right vehicle. So based on operations, what is actually the best vehicle for your operations? And the next is cycle out time. What is the optimal time to cycle out that vehicle? And then obviously find efficiencies in the fleet, flatlining maintenance and fuel costs going forward as well. Now, first way we do it is called the right vehicle, right term. Again, a lot of information, so please do stop me if you can. But basically on our side, we have tools to use and compare different types of vehicles to come to the optimal vehicle and optimal hold time. When we're taking a look at this, we're inputting acquisition cost, we're inputting overall cost of ownership, so maintenance and fuel costs throughout the life cycle of the vehicle. But also very importantly, we're also factoring in, okay, well, what is the possible resale of this vehicle at the end of the term? Based on kilometers, so we estimate roughly speaking about 10,000 kilometers a year. It come out when we did this in 2024. The best vehicle for operations here at the city of Lacombe was a Ford F-150 XLT, and that was at a 5-year term, $1.26 per kilometer. Right, that was the initial one. Now we can get very granular with this, so we can get even more specific. The next thing we wanted to show you is we took a look at trim levels, for example. So for the example, the F-150, we took a look at the XL, we took a look at the XLT. And we took a look at the Lariat, the very nice one, right? So still, not to our surprise, mid-level trims, generally speaking, are your lowest overall cost, because at the end of the vehicle, when we sell it, we return the equity, you get a little bit more at the back end when you have a little bit nicer features, right, on the vehicle. No one really wants a plain Jane vehicle when they are buying something. So again, we always recommend a mid-level trim. And again, our data shows us that at a 5-year, the XLT over the other trim levels is still the lowest cost of ownership. Again, even more granular, we want to take a look at Super Cab versus Super Crew Cab, right? Because that does affect resale a little bit. And again, the XLT Super Crew Cab will still come at a little bit lower cost of ownership at $1.26. Now, with the new information that we have this year, obviously with the very insane Chevy or GM, I should say, incentives, that recommendation has changed a little bit. So again, that goes back to our meetings where we do multiple meetings a year just to make sure that, hey, going forward, is this advice still the best advice going forward? So this year's changed a little bit. So $13,500 off of this Chevy half-ton is actually putting your GMC SLE, the 1500, as what our recommendation would be. And you can see that the cost of ownership has changed a little bit, right? So it was $1.26 for the 2024, and now we're almost at under $1 at $1.03. So that's one way we take a look at cost of ownership is right vehicle, right term. Now, the next way we take a look at is the effective net depreciation. Now, the finance people in here are going to love this, but this is another way we want to take a look at, okay, well, this is your asset. What is actually the true cost of this asset over the cycle of time? And Brendan's going to go through that a little bit with you guys.
And the math is a little bit more digestible. So I'm sure not many of us think in terms of cents per kilometer when they think in terms of, what is this vehicle costing me? We do, because we want to get as granular as we can with your fleet and find efficiencies anywhere that we can and seize on those efficiencies, like hacking your fleet. The math behind effective net depreciation is actually very simple, and you can apply it to your own vehicle. So what did you buy it for? minus what did you sell it for, or what could you sell it for, divided by how many months did you operate it. So just some simple math, if you bought a truck for $60,000 and then you sold it for $30,000, that's 30,000 divided by, let's say you had that truck for 60 months, that's $500. That's a $500 effective net depreciation. Okay, and no matter how you acquire a vehicle, whether you buy it outright and you pay cash, or you get a lease and it's a net lease, or an equity lease like ours where you own the equity in the vehicles, or you rent it, no matter how you acquire a vehicle, you will have an effective net depreciation regardless. And your goal, our goal for you, is to get that effective net depreciation down as low as possible. So in the example that I gave, it was $500. So we need to put into perspective, is that good or is it bad? So to put that into perspective, this isn't your fleet, by the way. This is the fleet from one of our other government clients in Alberta. And while I can't tell you which one because of privacy, I can show you that on average, when you take into account what they acquired vehicles for, minus what we're projected to sell them for, divided by how many months they had each one in their fleet, on average, their effective net depreciation is $470. Similar to our example, but again, is that good or bad? So if you were to go out and rent these vehicles, if you were to rent these trucks, you'd probably pay somewhere around $1,500 per month. Now, it's flexible. It's yours if you need it, ours when you don't. You can return it whenever you want, but you have no equity in the vehicle. So if you need a vehicle long-term, that's actually really expensive, $1,500 per month, and $1,000 more expensive than the example we just talked about and this government client. And the reason why this government client's effective net depreciation is so low is because they've been really, really good at finding out the best kind of vehicle to buy, the most efficient vehicle to buy, how long to keep it, and then to maximize on the resale. So get your acquisition cost down as low as you can, sell it for as much as you can, and how many months should it be in your fleet? And that involves analysis that we run to help you with that. And we're kind of experts in knowing the best time to buy and sell. We're kind of like stockbrokers in that sense, although don't paint us with the same brush. So this is your fleet, and the units at the top are in green, and it may be hard to see the details, but they haven't been around for very long. So you acquired them, they lost a lot of value really quickly because when you drive a vehicle off the lot, it goes from new to used overnight and loses a lot of value. And divided by, so if we took what you bought it for and minus what you could sell it for now and divided by a very low number like 4, obviously you end up with a number in the thousands. In this case, it's 7,000, because they haven't been around long enough to spread that cost out. They need to marinate in a sense. However, we know that they're going to follow the same pattern as the rest of our clients because looking at a subsection of your fleet that you acquired between 3 and 5 years ago, we kind of have an idea what you acquired these vehicles for, and we have an idea what you could sell them for because we sell 1 million vehicles per year. And we know how long you had them because you bought them new. And as you can see, they're following the same pattern. $567 per month effective net depreciation, a third of what it would cost for you to rent these vehicles. And the reason I chose these is because they're optimal time to sell. If you look at the very far right column, your equity position, and you own these vehicles, you have anywhere between $18,000 and $24,000 of equity in the vehicles. Now, here's the thing about the equity position, it's never going to go up. It's only going to keep going down as the vehicle gets older and as you put more kilometers on it. So the trick is to seize it at its high point and make that equity work for you. And just to drill into that a bit more, I chose one as an example. And just to give you an example of where we get some of this information, what did you buy it for? We can pull from a program called AutoData, which tells us what the MSRP and invoice prices were year over year. And we pull the estimated resale price from a program called Canadian Black Book. And again, we know how long you've had it roughly. So we know this information is accurate. We know that the vehicles you already have that you acquired are going to follow the same pattern as the ones you have from us. My hope for you is that you capitalize on the equity in those owned vehicles before it starts to decrease. And eventually vehicles just die and you pay someone to take them away. And we don't want that to happen. We want to seize it when it's at the highest possible point and make that equity work for you. So you have two possibilities. If we take that Ford F-150, this example Ford F-150, and you sell it, you could walk away with a check for $23,000, roughly. Or you could roll that $23,000 into a replacement vehicle and decrease your monthly payment. So if we put you in, as Inder said, a 2025 Sierra 1500 SLE with a $13,500 incentive, which is the highest, the highest I've seen since I've started, your monthly payment would be about $1,100, lower than your 2024 leases, by the way, because the incentive is so healthy. If you roll the $23,000 from the sale, your monthly payment goes down to under $800, $746 per month, half of what you're currently paying for your 2024 leases. That would be our recommendation in terms of what to do with the money that you bring in from your sales.
Perfect. And now we've kind of done that. One of the other questions that you may have is, okay, well, does it make sense to lease a vehicle through Enterprise, or does it make sense just to, hey, pay this vehicle down to $1 and just do a cash purchase, basically? This is a present value analysis. So again, another tool that we have at our disposal. Basically, it's the same thing as what we've been talking about. At the very top is a leasing program through Enterprise. This model takes into consideration interest, it takes into consideration inflation, it takes into consideration cost of capital, and it spits out, okay, well, if you spend $1 today, what's that dollar costing you tomorrow, is what the present value analysis says. So both of these examples are the same. Now, this is a proof of concept. It's not exact dollars and cents, but it's a proof of concept using the information that we have. But in the top, it's saying, okay, well, you're not paying for that vehicle all the way up front. You're doing monthly payments on that vehicle. At the end of the 5-year term, you're selling that vehicle for $30,000 cash. So over time, that vehicle is actually costing you about $57,285. Now, that includes maintenance, that includes fuel, and that includes the resale of the vehicle. Now, the same concept at the bottom is a little bit different. So rather than doing monthly payments, you're spending cash in year one for that vehicle. So you'll see the value of payments in the first year at $68,000. Same concept, you're selling that vehicle for $30,000, but because of cost of capital, because of inflation, it's actually a little bit more expensive, just about $4,000 more if you were to front load your vehicles and put all that cash all in one place, rather than piecemealing it out and then paying that vehicle down over 5 years, capturing on that equity at the end of 5 years. Now, finally, like I was saying, this is what our kind of goal was here today, is to show you a little bit of an insight in terms of how we look at a fleet. There's a lot of different factors that go into it, but on our side, as fleet professionals, we've been in the industry for about 10 years. We're very passionate about this, but at the same time, on the government landscape, because we're not marking up the vehicles for our government clients, and because the incentives are so high, we think it's a good idea to expand the pilot project by about 6 more vehicles. Now, we've identified these 6 units alongside Brett and Jordan over the last few conversations, just saying, hey, these would be the optimal vehicles to think about. But at the same time, these vehicles are in a position where we can take the equity and actually lower your payments going forward. And with that, that's our recommendation. So what we would be doing is order banks have opened up for these half tons. So we'd want to be replacing at least 6, so 6 factory orders. And then our client review, annual client review, which is going to be happening in a few months early next year, is where we review the first year worth of data, but then also how the 6 months of the new vehicle have been playing out. And with that, that is it. So we want to open it up to any questions, because I'm sure there's a lot of questions here. So
certainly a lot of information to look at.
A lot, yeah.
Yes, we appreciate it nonetheless. Just curious, when you say factory orders,
yes,
is that from you direct to factory or through local dealers?
So actually, that's a great point that you asked. So when we first had these conversations with Jordan, one of the requirements was, as much as possible, vehicles need to be procured in the city if possible. So on our side of things, just the way it works is I can't go directly to Ford and then go to our clients and sell a vehicle to our clients. So I can't go to Ford, hey, I need 3 F-150s, and then do the facilitation. We actually need dealerships to do the middle work, or the paperwork in the middle. So we have a list of preferred dealers that we use, that we have pre-agreements with, saying, hey, listen, rather than you charging $2,000 or $3,000 markup on these vehicles, we're only going to pay a couple $100. To take that one step further, Jordan said, hey, if we can do this, it has to fit within the threshold of the city. So what we did was we reached out to the different dealers here in Lacombe. So the Gary Moe, Chev, and the Ford dealers. to see if they'd be willing to play ball a little bit. So the vehicles that we did procure from the factory last year actually went through the dealership here, the 3 different dealerships here. So going forward, when we're ordering these GMs, let's say, we would be placing them directly with the manufacturer, but then the deal or the paperwork would have to be completed by a local dealer here.
And not at all uncommon. All factory orders eventually sourced, they come through a dealer somewhere. And it's not at all uncommon for especially our government clients to want to work with their local dealers to keep the business geographically inside that city or county.
Yeah, and sometimes we do run into dealers where they're like, hey, why would we do this, right? Why would we charge $200 or $300 when we can charge $2,000 or $3,000? And the concept there is, well, currently what most businesses or manufacturer or commercial clients are doing is they're taking one vehicle and they're holding it for 12 years. Whereas in a program like this, now it's cycling vehicles every couple of years. So we start to see benefit of that. But the good news is the local dealers here want to be part of the program and they wanted to get vehicles done through here. So we were able to use them as our preferred dealers here locally.
Great, thank you. Not seeing a bunch of other questions. You getting off the hook pretty easy.
Yeah.
I'm sure we'll be discussing the data that you brought forward and the idea of expanding the program amongst ourselves and with administration in the not too distant future. And I expect that Director Thompson will keep in touch as well.
Perfect.
We do have another question, late as it may be, from Councillor Gullickson.
Sorry about that, Mayor Creasy. Quick question regarding, and even though I don't like them, well, I wouldn't buy one myself, but electric vehicles. Have you, because the only place I can see them really working is in our situation where you have extremely low mileage every day. They come back, they plug in. It's really simple. Do you deal in electric vehicles at all?
We do. We can source any kind of vehicle, right? We do have some clients trialing electric vehicles. We have a few trialing some Ford Lightnings. Right now, it seems like the best reviews come when the vehicle is fairly local. It's driving around Calgary. It's driving around whatever local municipality. You have the charging infrastructure there, right? And you don't have to worry about long trips and am I even going to make it, right? And what's along the way for charging infrastructure, right? So it's range anxiety, right? The best range on the market right now is the Tesla Roadster, which is about 1,000 kilometers to a charge, and then mid-level range is about 500, and your plug-in hybrids are about 60 kilometers, right? It's a question of cost, but also a question of practicality.
Well, and looking at our fleet, you realize the mileage that we do on a daily basis on a lot of our vehicles is extremely low.
It is.
And those vehicles could be dedicated to the community itself. So I think it might be an option to look at, even though I'm not a huge fan. It's the one place that I think they really do work.
I agree with you. So the one thing about electric vehicles that we just have to be somewhat aware of is it's very volatile right now. You'll notice that a lot of the big manufacturers jumped in with both feet and then they ran the opposite way as quick as they could after losing a lot of money. Right. So Ford F-150, for example, last year, there was almost a $15,000 to $20,000 drop in the equity or the cost of that vehicle. So meaning if you purchase that vehicle for $80,000, I'm just using random examples, and a month later, that vehicle brand new was worth $60,000. That's not a really good number, right? Being in a program like this, we're aware of what's going on. We're seeing a lot of manufacturers shift over to alternative fuel, like hybrid is coming back quite significantly as well. But to my previous point, you know, with the model that's currently being used, that's not leased, where you buy a vehicle, hold it with cash, it's really tricky to pivot into a new strategy when electric vehicles, for example, let's say they do become big players. When you're in a leasing program like this, when you're on an open-ended equity cycle, we can get in and out of that vehicle at any given point. So if there are situations where electric vehicles would be of great use in the city, you're on an open-ended equity lease. We could pop that vehicle out in 2 years, let's say, for example, capture on the equity and get into a new one. Whereas in the other way around, you've kind of sunk in $80,000 into a vehicle and you're holding that vehicle for longer than you want. So we're not there yet when it comes to electric. We tell our customers to let's just, you know, think about this a little bit more. But there will be, I think, in the future, as technology starts advancing, that it's going to make sense eventually, just not right now, especially in our climate.
Thank you.
Thank you.
One last opportunity. Any additional questions? Thank you both for your time.
Perfect. Thank you so much for the
Thank you.
opportunity. Bye.
So with our presentations addressed, it's now 6:44, past our 6 PM minimum or earliest time frame to have our public hearings. And we do have 2 this evening. The first one before us is item 5.1 in your agendas. Bylaw 400.61 for land use bylaw amendment for the municipal heritage inventory. And as mayor, I declare the statutory public hearing for bylaw 400.61 is now open, and that this hearing is held pursuant to sections 7, 8, 230, 606, 640, and 692 of the Municipal Government Act 2000 as amended, and request our legislative coordinator to confirm the purpose of this public hearing, that the statutory public hearing was in fact advertised as required by the city's advertising bylaw, and then any written submissions received and not included in the public hearing agenda package are now read into the record.
Thank you,
Coordinator
Mayor.
Bellabono.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy and Council. The purpose of this public hearing is to provide an opportunity for the general public to offer input on the proposed amendment to bylaw 400.61, which received its first reading on August 12th, 2024. Bylaw 400.61 seeks to amend land use bylaw 400 by amending table 14.5.1 municipal heritage inventory historic buildings to reflect and include properties that have recently been designated as municipal historic resources. In accordance with the city's advertising bylaw 482 and section 606 of the Municipal Government Act regarding advertising requirements, a public hearing notice was published in the Lacombe Express on Thursday, September 5th, 2024, and Thursday, September 12th, 2024, and on the city website as indicated in the agenda package. Mayor Creasy and Council, no written submissions were received, and the city received no registrations from members of the public to speak.
Appreciate that. Just a reminder that all persons giving oral presentations are to clearly state their name, and presentations are to be kept brief and to the point. The order for the statutory public hearing presentation will be as follows. Initially, our development officer or designate, followed by those in favor, then those opposed, and finally, any person deemed to be affected who wishes to be heard. This evening, our development officer is Manager Hackett. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Mayor Creasy and members of council. As stated, we have consideration tonight of bylaw 400.61. This is an amendment to the land use bylaw to adjust table 14.5.1, which is the list of the properties on the heritage inventory. Buildings are being added to the list of designated historic resources, and in this way they're being elevated from the inventory. So the amendment tonight just proposes to update that list. In terms of background, council may recall that about a year ago in September of 2023, Lacombe's land use bylaw was amended to shift from defining every building that was older than 50 years old as a historic building to instead focus on buildings that are the most significant based on their history or their character defining features. And so the most significant buildings are listed on our heritage inventory. And that list is found in the land use bylaw on table 14.5.1. So when council made that change, it really streamlined the process for development and building permits for all buildings that were older than 50 years old or constructed before 1974. And that was expected. That was part of the reason for bringing that amendment forward. But what we didn't expect is that it seems to have sparked interest from property owners in applying for municipal historic designation. And so several property owners who have buildings listed on the inventory have come to council seeking additional recognition for their buildings and to move them up to the level of designation. So we've had 5 buildings come forward in the last year for designation. And as that happens, the table in 14.5.1 needs to be updated. So of the 5 buildings that have received designation as municipal historic resources, in 4 cases, the property owners have elevated these buildings from the city's inventory to receive designation as a historic resource. And the 4 buildings that are listed in the land use bylaw as being on the inventory still are the Presbyterian Manse, which has been approved by council as a municipal historic resource. The Lacombe Nurseries Limited Residence, also approved previously by council. And then on tonight's agenda for consideration are the McClear Block and Annex and the Garland Residence. So if those bylaws are approved, they would move from the inventory up to being designated. So bylaw 400.61 just proposes to move those 4 buildings off the inventory and onto a new list in the bylaw, which is municipally designated historic resources. And that is really to ensure transparency, so that when people look at that list in the bylaw, it's up to date and it's accurate. And so the recommendation tonight is that council gives second reading to bylaw 400.61 as presented, that council resolves to consider third reading of bylaw 400.61 at tonight's meeting, and that council gives third reading to bylaw 400.61 as presented. Thank you.
Thank you, Manager Hackett. I would now ask that anyone who wishes to speak in favor of bylaw 400.61, this is your opportunity. Don't everybody rush up at once. Second call for those wishing to speak in favor. And third and final call. Seeing none, I'll move into those opposed. Anyone who wishes to speak in opposition of bylaw 400.61, please come forward. Equal amount of takers for opposition. Second call for those in opposition. And third and final. And finally, any person deemed to be affected who wishes to be heard. Now is your opportunity to do so. Everybody's looking at me like I've lost my mind, but we're required to do this according to the MGA. Second call for those deemed to be affected who wishes to be heard now. And third and final call. Seeing none, I declare the public hearing for bylaw 400.61 is now closed at 6:51. And it's now 6:52. So I declare that the statutory public hearing for bylaw 400.60 now open, and that this hearing is held pursuant to sections 7, 8, 230, 606, 640, and 692 of the Municipal Government Act 2000 as amended, and request our legislative coordinator to confirm the purpose of the public hearing, that the statutory public hearing notice was advertised as required by the city's advertising bylaw, and that any written submissions received and not included in the public hearing agenda package are read into the record.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy and Council. The purpose of this public hearing is to provide an opportunity for the general public to offer input on the proposed amendment to bylaw 400.60, which received its first reading on August 12, 2024. Bylaw 400.60 seeks to amend land use bylaw 400 by amending the University Commercial District UC to add auto body and paint shop as a site-specific use to Unit 5, Plan 0628084, and remove auto body and paint shop as a site-specific use from Unit 11 Plan 0628084. In accordance with the city's advertising bylaw 482 and Section 606 of the Municipal Government Act regarding advertising requirements, a public hearing notice was published on the Lacombe Express on Thursday, September 5th, 2024, and Thursday, September 12th, 2024, and on the city website as indicated in the agenda package. Mayor Creasy and Council, 6 written submissions were received, which are all included in the agenda package, and the city received 8 registrations from members of the public to speak this evening.
Thank you, Coordinator Bellabono. As previous, I would remind that all persons giving oral presentations are asked to clearly state their name. Presentations should be brief and to the point, and a little more participation in this item, I think, than maybe the previous is expected. So our legislative coordinator will call upon the registered speakers when it is their turn to speak, just to keep things orderly. The order of the statutory public hearing presentation will be as follows. Our development officer or designate, whichever that may be, and followed by those in favor. Our registered speakers, of course, will speak first, and then those opposed. Once again, those registered or who chose to register will be invited to speak first in the order with which they did register. And then finally, any person deemed to be affected who wishes to be heard. And I believe that there were some registered speakers there as well. So at this time, I would ask that Manager Hackett, or is it Senior Officer Kirk that's going to be handling this one? Senior Officer Kirk, as our designated development officer, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy and members of council. All right, so the item before you tonight is bylaw 400.60, which is a request to amend the University Commercial District of the land use bylaw. So we would be adding auto body and paint shop as a site-specific discretionary use to Unit 5, Plan 0628084. And just so that everyone's aware, that's located at 7102 52 Street. And then we would remove auto body and paint shop as a site-specific discretionary use from Unit 11 of the same building, which was previously approved under bylaw 400.38. So the applicant, which is FSK Paint and Collision, was previously approved under bylaw 400.38 to operate the auto body and paint shop from Unit 11, 7102 52 Street. The applicant recently relocated the business from Unit 11 of the building to Unit 5 of the same building. If approved, bylaw 400.60 would shift that approval to Unit 5 and remove it from Unit 11. So under the land use bylaw zoning, the subject site is zoned University Commercial District, where the purpose of the district is to provide a variety of commercial activities and student support services related to the operation of Burman University. The existing zoning in the area aligns with the types of land uses identified in the Municipal Development Plan, the North Area Structure Plan, and the College Heights Outline Plan. The surrounding lands are primarily residential or university related. So under the statutory plan analysis, we did look at 3 different stat plans. The first one was the Municipal Development Plan, where the subject site is identified as future mixed use. And then policy COM 5.2 indicates that these locations are intended for a combination of residential and commercial land uses. The next plan was the North Area Structure Plan, where policy 4.33 indicates that the College Business Park is meant to transition towards institutional and commercial uses with some possibility of residential and away from the light industrial uses. And then the College Heights Outline Plan, where it shows the subject site as part of the commercial business park. And the objective for the area is to create an attractive commercial business park, which includes retail sales, warehousing, and light industrial manufacturing businesses, and anything related to the university or college. Under the land use bylaw and the UC zoning, the listed permitted and discretionary uses are predominantly commercial. However, the district includes that site-specific exception to allow the auto body and paint shop from Unit 11. Listed industrial type uses in this building include minor food production facility, a distribution facility, general manufacturing, repair facility without outdoor storage yard, and warehousing. And under the bylaw, auto body and paint shop is a discretionary use in the light industrial district and the highway commercial district, and is a permitted use in the heavy industrial district. So auto body and paint shop means development for the repair and or painting of motor vehicle bodies and frames, and for damaged motor vehicle appraisal services. The shop specializes in restorations, small light repairs, custom work, and support training through apprenticeships. The shop is low volume, focusing on 2 to 3 vehicles per month, and they only take on vehicles that they can fit inside of the shop, so there's no need for outdoor storage. In discussions with the applicant, the reason for relocating included rental prices. Unit 5 is about 2,000 square feet larger than Unit 11, and Unit 5 is located at the rear of the building where more of the industrial type uses are, and it's out of view from the residential area across the street on Beardsley Crescent. Landowners located within 60 meters of the subject site, which included members of the building's condominium board, were consulted via direct written notification of the application, the public hearing date and time. The broader public was consulted through notice of the proposed amendment and the public hearing in the Lacombe Express and information posted on the city's website. The opportunity to provide feedback was available through written submissions and the public hearing. And at the time of submitting the report, administration did receive 4 agency responses, all noting no concerns. And administration did not receive responses from the neighboring property owners, but the condominium board did submit a letter of opposition. So in summary, we're looking at a site-specific amendment to amend the UC district to allow an auto body and paint shop in Unit 5, Plan 0628084, and remove auto body and paint shop from Unit 11, Plan 0628084. Generally, industrial uses in this district are not consistent with the direction given under the Municipal Development Plan and the North Area Structure Plan. However, the auto body and paint shop has been operating from the land since 2020 with no record of bylaw complaints. The business relocated due to rental prices, Unit 5 being larger and Unit 5 being located at the rear of the building. The recommendation is that council gives second reading to bylaw 400.60 as presented, and that council resolves to consider third reading of bylaw 400.60 at the same meeting as second reading, and that council gives third reading to bylaw 400.60 as presented. Thank you.
Appreciate that, Senior Development Officer Kirk. Coordinator Bellabono, with respect to our registered speakers who wish to speak in favor, who's up first?
Daryl Hodgkinson, applicant for bylaw 400.60.
And while you're getting prepared there, just a reminder for everyone, as was stated earlier, to state your name for the record, and please use the microphone when you push down on the front there and the red light comes on. That means it's active and working.
My name is Daryl Hoganson. I am the sole owner of FSK Paint and Collision. I'm here to, under the first time that I came here, I made a lot of assumptions and I had to learn a lot. My apologies to the city of Lacombe and the condo board that operates for the condo for the whole building. Which I'm in. My misunderstanding was in the process of which to move the bays was wrong. There was a lot of mass confusion over how that kind of all played out. There was requirements for the city of Lacombe and then requirements for the condo board, and some affected me and some didn't. The very first thing I did when I went to acquire the bay number 5 was I went to the city of Lacombe and I obtained a business license through the city of Lacombe. And at that time, there was no mention of any permits that were required. And that made me feel that everything was okay to do the move. I have a copy of the business license with me if anybody needed to see that. That was the very, very first thing I did before I even considered moving anything into Bay 5. The reason I did that is because my first move to Lacombe was a bit of a process that we went through. I gave notice to my previous landlord that I was moving to a different bay, and he is a member of the condo board. When the final electrical and the final booth exhaust was done, what I'm finding out is that the complaint is that no permits were pulled. My assumption was that the people that did the booth exhaust and that did the final electrical, that they would be the ones that would pull the permits. So that was I have to take ownership in that they didn't do that. So I did, assume that they weren't required. The reasons that I moved were common sense. The cheaper rent was the biggest one. The better fit for my business was definitely something that I couldn't overlook. In Bay 11, doing restorations, when I do a complete tear down of a vehicle, it takes up a huge amount of room. And not always in Bay 11 with the square footage that I had that accommodate. In Bay 5, I can tear apart 2 vehicles and I can spread that out throughout the whole shop. And then it makes it a lot easier on me because then I'm not searching for parts at different locations while they're stored. Moving to the rear bay, I have less impact because the rear of the bays are more industry driven, as where the front of the bays are more of a softer side for the building. They're more storefront and more appealing to the neighbors who originally had opposition to me. Minimal impact to me is important because I'm not in the faces of the neighbors like I was before. Less possibility of any of the complaints of them seeing, crushed vehicles come in or whatever damage, right? Some businesses are more intense than mine. I'm a very low volume, and meaning that the customer flow isn't huge. Like I don't have 15 people coming through my doors every day. I have 1 or 2, or I'll have a repeat customer that I've been dealing with to do a restoration takes 6 months. Sometimes it takes years. It just depends on what's happening. To this day, I've had no complaints. And in fact, I do work with the Burman residents and I'm very active within the community of Lacombe. If you have questions on how I'm active in the community, I'm more than happy to let you know that. The fire department did an inspection of my bay, and I cooperated fully with the fire chief and the deputy fire chief, and there was no concerns that were addressed. I actually have a copy of their report here as well. They sent that there was no areas of concern with the paint booth, with the storage of the paint, with the cleanup equipment, with absolutely anything that was stored, or the way I was operating my business or the way I was conducting my business. There was no areas of concern that were brought up by the fire department whatsoever. They were actually quite happy with a lot of everything that I had implemented to that point. I've had my business for 20 years. I kind of know what's going on in that way. The fire department even went in as far as to the concerns with my spray booth. Sometimes fire suppression units are required for paint booths, but it's based on the volume that the paint booth is producing. My volume that in my paint booth is below the category where they felt it was a concern, and they approved it moving from that position. They took a stand and said that my volume was low enough that they weren't concerned. The first time that I did this process, I had the neighbors were opposed to me. The neighbors like across the way, they were opposed to me, and they didn't really want me in there. I remember it was a little bit of a battle. I've developed an excellent relationship with the neighbors, and on a business level as well as a personal level and as a friend. I've got a lot of those neighbors that come over and they have coffee, or they want to see the hot rods that we're working on, or they just want to chill, or we'll get a hoodie and walk around with a hoodie or whatever. It's nice. I've never had that in Red Deer. I have it in Lacombe. I don't want to lose it. At this time, I feel the condo has they don't necessarily have a problem with me or my business, but they have a problem with which the process of my move happened with the landowner versus the condo board. This is a separate issue and should not affect the land use bylaw, as I'm sure even the condo board themselves would rather see my business be in the back side of the building, the west side of the building, as opposed to the east side of the building facing the adjacent neighbors. If the proper communication had taken place with the owner and the condo board, I feel that this would have been a much smoother process. I communicated openly with everybody. I communicated with the old bay owners, with the new bay owner. In fact, with Warren, who is the bay owner of who I'm in now, I told him right at the very beginning, you know, I got my business license. Nothing was really said of what I needed to do or anything, so we're good to go. And we just kind of move forward based on that. I understand the process now, and I've been working with Jennifer Kirk to make sure things are right. I have nothing to hide. I'm very transparent. It's a learning curve for me, and it's to correct the assumptions within the city and learning about the condo rules. All the learning process that I've done has been very confusing, but I visited the City of Lacombe website and read in the MPC minutes that I'm not the only business to make this mistake and misunderstand the needs for proper paperwork, including permits and ensuring all communication is clear. Specifically, bays moving in without proper permits. There at this time is 3 different bays that are in the same boat as me. So my bay plus 3 other bays that are making the same mistakes. I do not want to be made an example of, because I love Lacombe, and I feel that that's kind of what's happening here. Is I love Lacombe and relationships that I've formed. Seniors especially like to stop and say hello, which to me is my feel-good moment, and I love to share that. I did not get those moments when I was in my previous location. I was in my previous location in Red Deer in one location 15 years, and then before that another 5 or 8. I'm very pleased, and I hope I don't jinx myself by saying that the entire time that I was in Red Deer, I dealt with crime. I dealt with break-ins, I dealt with vandalism, I dealt with unwanted people in the property. The entire time that I've been at Burman University, which has been since 2020, I have not had one single incident. So it helps me focus as a business person. It makes me better as a person individually, because I don't have those negative factors drawing me down or changing me and my personality, because I am somebody that likes to be very positive out in the public. So again, my desire is to stay in Lacombe, and I welcome any questions. I'm willing to cooperate with any future requirements as needed to stay in good standing with not only the City of Lacombe, but anybody else that would have a concern. That's it.
Thank you.
Not bad for a body.
It's all good.
Did anybody want to see the fire permit or fire inspection or the business license?
Thank you. At this particular time, that won't be necessary, no.
Okay.
Coordinator Balabono, presenter number 2, please.
Is that
Warren Kitteringham?
Good evening. Thank you, Mayor and Council. My name is Warren Kitteringham. I am the owner of Bay 5 in Lacombe Business Center. As Daryl said, he reached out to me needing more space, and my Bay 5 is almost double the size of where he was at before. So we had discussions about that. He then proceeded to get his business license, which we both thought was the okay to proceed. And I thought, since it's the exact same business, only on the other side of the building, I didn't really see there would be an issue with his operation. I did tell the condo board I did have a new tenant coming in. I didn't indicate, you know, the business. I just said I had a new guy coming in. Again, he's literally 100 feet down the hall from where he was to where he is now. Daryl's always communicated well his plans and ideas for the bay and any issues that arose during his move. As he mentioned, the west side of the building is much better suited for his type of business. It's more of the industrial side versus the east side being the softer side and facing the residences. Again, he has a current fire inspection with 0 issues. He used approved contractors, ticketed contractors to do his electrical and piping work for his spray booth. The only issue, I guess, is I didn't indicate to the condo board what the business was going to be that was moving over. Again, I have no issues with what Daryl's doing there, and I hope he continues on.
Thank you. Next for bylaw 400.60, speaking in favor.
Lou Fleck.
My name is Lou Fleck.
Mr. Black, if I could just thank you.
You left, my hearing isn't very good. I got new hearing aids. I can't hear too well, but just 2 years ago, in a month's time, I had a fire. I live in Beardsley Crescent, just 2 blocks from where Daryl's got his shop. At that time, I didn't realize I had a shop there. I got burned out one night. My truck and car both burnt. And fire truck come the next morning. And the neighbor told me I had backed my truck and my car out. They're all black with burnt. And my neighbor come to me, said, Lou, you know where to take your equipment to get fixed? Just up the road to Daryl's place. I didn't know Daryl, but I was close and I was all upset. So I took my car and truck up there. He took my truck in, and my wife is handicapped. She has old age disease. She died just a few months ago, but at that time I took my wife up with it because I couldn't leave her alone. We went up to Daryl's office and we were waiting for the adjuster to come to look at my truck from Red Deer. We waited about an hour and a half before the adjuster came, and Daryl was in his office. I was in his office with my wife. She was fit to be tied. She couldn't sit there very long. She had to complain, and Daryl was comforting her. Finally, the adjuster came. I went out. My wife, I told her to sit there with Daryl. He took care of her like it was her father. Tremendous. I have no complaints with Daryl whatsoever. He done my car. Fantastic job. Since then, the last 2 months, I've been with him 5 times, had different work done in my car. Whatever he's priced me, when I come to pay for it, it was less than what he quoted me. I have nothing but praise to say for his dealing with me, and no complaints. I'd go back and recommend anybody go back to him again. Excellent, excellent man. What can I say?
Well, I certainly appreciate you speaking on his behalf, as I'm sure he does, and I'm sorry for your personal loss. Was there anything that you would like to add specifically for bylaw 400.60?
No, not really. I can't hear you very well, but no, I can't add anything more except that I would go back anytime.
All right.
Even for visit. Great man.
Thank you, Mr. Heck.
Thank you.
And next speaker, please.
Mike Hughes. Mike Hughes.
Good evening. My name is Mike Hughes. I've lived in Lacombe and town and also the community or county of Lacombe since the late 60s. I've known Daryl since, I'm not sure if you all know the Red Onion days, but that's how long I've known Daryl. And like the Red Onion, a small mom and pop operation, that's what Daryl operates. a family-based orientated business. And I myself run the same type of business, a family business. And I think it would be, well, over the years, I've taken well over a dozen vehicles to Daryl's shop for various types of repairs, body and mechanical. And Daryl's always treated me with the best service, both on a business level and a personal level. If you need something done, Daryl's on top of it 100% all the time. And I just believe it would be a disservice to our community to not allow Daryl to continue operating a business like this. I believe it's the backbone of our communities. Businesses like Daryl's, like the Red Onion was, like myself, we make these types of communities thrive. And it's, in my opinion, it would just be a disservice to not have Daryl continue running the type of business that he does today. And I will continue to go to him many years to come, just because of the level of commitment he has, you know, on a business level and a personal level to take care of your vehicles. And so that's what I'd like to say on behalf of Daryl.
Thank you.
All right.
And in favor, additionally, we have
Tessa Woods.
Hello, everyone. I'm Tessa. Nice to be here. I wrote something in my phone because I don't really do well talking at a whole bunch of people. So I wanted to tell you a little tiny bit. I know it's like the end of the night, so I'm going to make this really short. My name is Tessa Woods, and I'm a single mother to 3 children. I was born and raised here in Lacombe, and I've called this community home my entire life. I'm a social work student and a program coordinator for group homes within our community, where I dedicate myself to supporting our most vulnerable populations: seniors, minorities, children, and those who often don't have a voice. Today, I stand here to give voice not just to them, but to a local business that means so much to me and to many of us, Daryl's Auto Shop. I can't stress enough how important small businesses like Daryl's are to people like me and to people like you. I'm standing here as someone who has personally experienced Daryl's kindness, honesty, and integrity. I remember my car about 6 months ago was having some issues with one headlight. I got quotes from every shop here in town. One mechanic told me that the repairs would cost over $3,000. Another shop went so far as to suggest that I should write off my car altogether. Can you imagine that? As a single mother trying to raise my kids, that kind of expense was devastating. I didn't know what I was going to do, but then I met Daryl. He fixed my car for less than $500. And that is the price of the part and the service. That is the honest, integrative, like, quote that you would get. So he didn't try to take advantage of me at being in a vulnerable position. He didn't see a dollar sign. He saw a person who needed help and he stepped up. That is who Daryl is. He's not just a mechanic, he's a cornerstone of this community. His shop is a place where people from all walks of life can come, knowing that they'll be treated fairly with respect and decency. And let me tell you, in today's world, finding someone who is honest and willing to help you when you're at your lowest is rare. Daryl's shop is a safe haven in a sea of uncertainty. Everyone in this room knows what it's like to hit hard times. We've all needed a hand up at some point. Whether you're a single parent like me, a senior on a fixed income, or just trying to get by, that's what Lacombe is all about. This is a town built on community, on helping your neighbor when they need it most. That's why people want to move here. They want to be a part of something special and something real. And Daryl represents that spirit of Lacombe, the spirit of loyalty, compassion, and support. This situation doesn't just affect longtime residents, it's also relevant to the students at the nearby university. I'm a student. Many of these young people are living on tight budgets, juggling tuition, rent, and daily expenses. When their cars break down, they need affordable, trustworthy help. Daryl has been that reliable resource for them too, keeping them on the road and able to continue their studies without the added stress of unreasonable repair costs. Losing this shop would be a blow not only to families, but to students trying to make their way in life. So I ask you, what happens if we lose this shop? What message are we sending if we allow an honest, hardworking man like Daryl to be pushed out? Are we saying that profit matters more than people? Because I know in my heart, that's not who we are. That's not the Lacombe that I was raised in, and that is not the Lacombe that I believe my children will be growing up in either. Evicting Daryl isn't just closing a business, it's ripping out a piece of what makes this town special. It's taking away the very foundation of what holds us together. We are a community that thrives on mutual support, on lifting each other up, and if we lose Daryl, we lose a part of ourselves. So I'm standing here today not just for Daryl, but for every family he's helped, for every single mother like me who has been able to keep her car on the road because of his honesty. And I'm standing here for the students who depend on him to keep their lives on track. I'm standing here for Lacombe, for what we stand for. And in my opinion, we cannot let this happen, and we should fight for him, because in doing so, we are fighting for the soul of this community. And that is all I have to say. Thank you for hearing me.
Thank you, Ms. Woods. You started out by saying you didn't speak well in front of others, and I don't think that was completely accurate.
I get nervous.
Thank you very much. Next up, speaking in favor of bylaw 400.60.
Melissa Fox.
Hi, I'm Melissa Fox. I don't know how to follow that. That was a lot more than what I was going to say. I also am originally from Lacombe. Also know Daryl from the Red Onion days, so I guess that kind of ages me too. But I just mostly wanted to speak on his character and who he says he is really who he is. He's definitely been an asset to this town. I've taken vehicles to him before as well, back in Red Deer and then again in Lacombe, and have nothing but good to say. Everything that he's worked on, my vehicles have been 100%. I believe that he's a huge asset to Lacombe, and I think it would be extremely unfortunate to see his business go. I also am a business owner, so I know how hard that can be, having a small business, struggling, especially with COVID. So I know how hard that is to have to try to keep a business going, and this is really unfair. I can't imagine how hard that would be. So I hope that you really consider keeping him here. Thank you.
Thank you. I believe that was our final registered member who wishes to speak in favor. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak in favor of bylaw 400.60 at this time? And just to be sure, our staff, there is no one out in the hall or anything like that, given we've got several people here, just to make sure. In the meantime, I would ask that if there is anybody else that wishes to speak in favor of bylaw 400.60, this is your final opportunity. And there is no one in the hall. Thank you for that, Andrew Hackett. Appreciate it. We can move into those who wish to speak in opposition. And I understand that we have a couple of registered speakers as well. Coordinator Bellbono.
Scott Pearson on behalf of the Lacombe Business Center Condo Board and Condo Unit Owner and Unit Owner Proxy.
That you certainly can. That would be fine. I believe there was just two that were registered to speak, and if that is agreeable to both of you, Mr. Erickson, go first. I have no problem with that at all.
As everybody is, first of all, thanks for keeping everybody here so late tonight. This location is a condo. There is 20 units in this condo. A condo is made up of 10,000 unit factors. Every condo is made up of 10,000 unit factors. And these unit factors are proportioned to the size of the units. And so not every unit in this space has equal unit factors that's attached. That's why when I sent in the letter that I sent in opposition, if you look in your packages, you'll see how those unit factors are proportioned. As well, we have a board that is voted in every year at an AGM. This board has the responsibility and the power to act on the bylaws that are present for this condo. And this, as you know, Daryl and Warren have acknowledged, is where the breakdown began, because our condo bylaws have not been followed here. And the condo bylaws require that every owner notify the condo as to their intended change of use, and they get the support of the condo board acting on behalf of everybody and the bylaws to be able to support a use or a change of use or not. In this case, because we have 20 different units, the application that was made for this bylaw change was, I suppose it was signed off by Warren. I don't know that for a fact. It's been removed from the package, but in any case, the condo board was not made aware of that, and that's why we're here today. The condo board represents 66% of the owned units in this condo. So not only are we a condo board, but we're a 66% unit owners in here as well. That's our representation on this. And I think that's what makes this so incredibly difficult, because not only as a board, but as a neighbor to an owner, I'm an owner as well, to have to come here and deal with this is not pleasant for anybody. But bylaws are bylaws. We have our rules that we have to administer. And we are doing that here tonight in opposition to this application. Because, you know, it's said in some of the documentation here that nobody is opposed to this. Well, the board voted 66% of the unit factors of this entire neighborhood to come here tonight and oppose this. I understand that the city takes these applications based on an owner, but that doesn't take away from the fact that the bylaws that the condo has also have power with them as well. And the first steps of this whole process were not adhered to. And then that creates the other problems that have now come after that.
So Scott Pearson, a board member for the Lacombe Business Center. I was at the September 9th meeting when this was discussed and addressed by the board. And when that vote was unanimously made to oppose this zoning proposal. There again, you know, Daryl has brought a lot of fans. He's a great guy. This isn't anything personal about Daryl. And that's not what this hearing is about. This hearing is about zoning and on behalf of the unit owner and the type of business that's being conducted there. So, you know, as a restoration business in the old location, he was, you know, it was stated 2 to 3 vehicles a month, et cetera. No outdoor storage included. And when he has moved to the new bay, there's a perceived change of business to a more mainstream auto body type business with some commercial clients. You know, there have been border paving trucks in the parking lot, that type of thing that was perceived by the board and others to be a more general auto body use and not as much restoration. So that had some factor into the type of business that it was and the change of use from the smaller bay to the larger bay. And the smaller bay was certainly discretionary zoning to begin with. It was not a regular approved use for the condo. And because the condo was not notified of any particulars of this, and the first written notification whatsoever that the condo board received was after our September 9th meeting. And it was in response to notification of, the board's position on this. And when we're looking at bays and bay use, we certainly do want it to be compatible, with the existing tenants. There was obviously some concerns raised at the board as far as how this move transpired. There were no, development permits in place, occupancy permits in place, the type of things that would have caused due diligence to the city, notification of the condo board. None of those things were completed. And so because of that, we didn't have any good information to stand on in terms of backing that type of move, which occurred approximately 5 months ago. And, the move occurred without the permitting, without the approved use of that unit, within the bylaws. So there was a number of different things that genuinely concerned us. So types of business, use, the permits and procedures not being followed, due diligence, because the procedures weren't followed, due diligence wasn't followed, there wasn't follow-up. We do certainly want to make sure that any use that we back has full backing by the condominium board and the members at large, and that it does not negatively impact any of the additional condo units or the general neighborhood. Certainly safety concerns, fire and safety concerns. Daryl did say he had a fire inspection. I don't know what that did or did not include. There are other units which have had similar type of things, and the due diligence we've seen them exhibit and additional sprinkler system, additional certifications, those type of things have been very commendable. And we were, willing and able to back those things. In terms of, Daryl had stated that there's 3 other bays in the same situation with some permit or compliant issues. None of those are zoning issues. And, those are being handled appropriately. And so we're in a little bit different and unique situation on this one is that it is a zoning issue allowing for something that there was a move made that wasn't with the appropriate permits or due diligence made. And that's the position of the board. And that's why we're in opposition of it tonight.
Thank you both. And I understand that we have no other registered speakers who wish to speak or to be heard in opposition of bylaw 400.60. Is that correct?
Yes, Mayor Creasy, that's correct.
Very good. I would give members of the public here then the opportunity to speak in opposition now, if you choose to do so. And more opportunity. And the third and final call for those wishing to speak in opposition of 400.60. As stated earlier, we would be finishing up with any person needing to be affected by this decision who wishes to be heard. And I believe that we have some that registered to speak in that regard as well. So Coordinator Bellabono, first up.
Sorry, Mayor Creasy, I believe that there was Ken Erickson was not sure if he was going to speak deemed to be affected or just opposed.
I think if I haven't made it clear, I think the board are all affected members. That's part of this presentation and the letter that we wrote. So we cannot, we're part of the board, we represent the board, but we're also owners or representative of owners that are there. So we're all affected people. And I guess that's what makes this difficult because, you know, in the documentation, it said that there was no opposition to this, and we are affected owners. We cannot, there's no other way to say it. We're unit owners, we're neighbors, we do business together, and this is an unfortunate situation, but that is the reality of what we have here tonight.
Thank you. Were there any other? So last opportunity for anybody who's deemed to be affected, who wishes to be heard at this time. Given that I allowed Mr. Erickson to speak twice, yes, you can.
I just wanted to.
Please use the mic though.
Right. I just wanted to say that transparency and clear communication are pretty crucial to all businesses. And I think something that is maybe being overlooked and like Daryl has taken acknowledgement of, there was some incorrect steps made, but I also am kind of struggling to see how that could negatively affect the other owners in the units, because that, by the sounds of it, seems like much more of a personal issue. Especially in regards to the older vehicles being outside of a mechanic shop. That's the nature of mechanic shops. So I just wanted to kind of put a also reality statement in saying that, you know, this is actually a service that is very much needed. And whether he stays in Lacombe or leaves, there will be a lot of people following him for his honest business. So yeah, that's what I want to say.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else deemed to be affected by this decision who wishes to be heard? And third and final call. Seeing none, I will declare this public hearing for bylaw 400.60 to be closed at 7:41 p.m. And that normally we go into our bylaws pertaining to, however, in this instance, we're going to follow our agenda and start with item 6.1, which is the 2025 franchise fee rates. Director Piche, take us through that item, please.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. So before council this evening is the annual review of the franchise fees. In the third quarter of each year, administration completes a review of the city's current municipal comparators rates to help determine the placement of the city's rates for franchise fees. Currently, the rates are 29.75% for ATCO Gas and 17.63% for FortisAlberta. Now, during the preparation of the 2025 franchise fees, just to be transparent on everything, that there was an error discovered in the previous year's calculations. The city's own rates were included in the municipal comparators, increasing the median rate only for ATCO Gas by 0.5%. This isn't the normal practice, so we just want to make that clear that that was an error on our side. So this should not be noted that, or it should be noted that using the median rate among the municipal comparators, it is the City of Lacombe's general practice not to, and it's just our general practice and not in policy or legislation. And this error has no reflection on ATCO or FortisAlberta. So the ATCO's forecasted delivery tariff for the City of Lacombe in 2025 is $4,097,402. At the current rate of 29.75%, this would generate $1,218,977 in franchise fee revenue. If the rate is reduced to the median rate, the true median rate of 29.25%, revenue would be $1,198,490. And this is a result of about $20,487 between the two rates of 29.75% and 29.25%. Now, Fortis Alberta, on the other hand, they project a delivery and transmission rate of $9,568,954, generating about 1.687 million in revenue at the current rate of 17.63%. Now, what this equates to the average household is that remaining at the current franchise fee of 29.75% for Echo Gas would impact a household by about $184.09 annually, or $15.34 monthly. If council wishes to lower the rate to 29.25%, the household impact is $181 or $15.08 monthly, which has a difference of $3.09 annually, or 26 cents monthly. The remaining at the Fortis Alberta's current franchise fee of 17.63% would impact households by $176.72 or $14.73 monthly. As a comparison in the RFD, or the memo to council, we did give an example of what it would be to increase rates by 1%, but that is only for reference, as administration is recommending that we maintain the franchise fee rates at 29.75% for Echo Gas and 17.63% for Fortis Alberta. If there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them at this time.
Thank you, Acting CEO Piché. Appreciate that. Councillor Ross.
Just make the first recommend a motion, if I may, that council keeps the 2025 natural gas ATCO Gas franchise fee for the city of Lacombe at the current rate of 29.75%.
Thank you. Councillor Hoekstra.
I was going to move that we put it at the median rate. So that's my comment, I guess, in response to that motion. I would rather that we could always with integrity say we operate at the median rate. And so that would be, sorry, Councillor Ross.
Councillor Dallas.
Thank you. I'm content to keep it at the current rate. I'm also just looking to share my opinion on franchise fees and how I dislike them a great deal, and how they are a revenue that fluctuates based on usage, and that is not ideal for our planning, and that I am keen and interested in finding a different way of sourcing this revenue that doesn't involve a third party. And so that is just my comment on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Connick.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. No, I'm happy to stay aligned at where they're at now. Just a couple of comments to build on. Councillor Dallas brought up a good question when he asked, what's the alternative if we don't renew with ATCO Gas? And there is none. So it's unfortunate that that's, I guess, a monopoly, if you will. But as Councillor Gullickson has said many times over, that if these rates go up, it's not coming out of ATCO Gas, it's coming out of the homeowner who has to pay that increase. So conversely, I don't know if they would actually, if they went down, if we would see a difference in our bill, to be quite frank. But any rate, I support the motion as written. It's just, they are what they are, I guess, these franchise fees.
Thank you, Councillor Connick. Just to be sure, you said if the franchise fees went down, we would not see an impact on our monthly bill?
I was speculating, but I'm sure there would.
Thank you. Councillor Gullickson.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. And I think everyone knows my feelings on these. Hopefully, I've been clear in the past. I think, it's just a tax. That's all it is. It's a hidden one for most people. They see it as ATCO's tax, not ours, which is unfortunate. But it is that, and it does fluctuate, and it would be nice to have more stable income, which could be done through our own taxation and make these zeros, such as Fort Saskatchewan has done. But No, if it did go off, certainly the bills would go down. They have to, they're regulated, they have to have them go down. They can't just take that increase for themselves. So yeah, it's a tax on our community, and I'd like to see it more, not as hidden.
And certainly that is one comment that we hear from an awful lot of people. This is in fact just that, a hidden tax. I see it a little differently than that myself. There is costs associated with doing business with all of our utilities, whether they're in-house generated or third party. It's not like it's all just free money. And while there certainly is a revenue impact, however this is adjusted, I am far more comfortable sticking with the mean numbers so that we have comparative communities and we can say that we're in line with them. And yes, of course, it would be desirable to have it less, just like it would be better to have taxation less and gas prices less and all the rest. I think that's a nice compromise to say that we would be at the median, and therefore I would like to see us go with that. And currently the motion reads that the ATCO natural gas rates, franchise fee for the city of Lacombe, stay at the current rate of 29.75. And for that reason only, I will not be sort of supporting that. We'll see how it goes, but that's my reasoning anyway. Councillor Hibbs.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. I would argue that this is definitely not a hidden tax, and it's very obvious. It's built right out onto your bill. Like any business that gets taxed, they also pass that on to consumers. So this is nothing new. That being said, I also support that if we're going to have a policy that says that we're going to take the median, then that it should be the median. And I won't be supporting 29.75. I think that it should be the 29.25. So that is my thought on that.
Thank you, Councillor Hoekstra.
Thanks, Mayor Creasy, and thank you for clarifying my point further. I just have a question about the ATCO presentation that as it applies to us. They said that we have a separate linear tax of 2.5%. Can you explain that in light of what we're talking about tonight, this 29 or something percent?
If I could, sorry, that was actually news to me tonight as well. I would have to go back and ask them a little bit more about it. I have not seen that on any of our revenue sheets or anything like that. So I will definitely follow up with that. I was planning on doing that after I saw their presentation as well.
Director Thompson, did you have any information that you'd like to add on that item?
No, Mayor Creasy, not tonight.
Thank you. I look forward to that as well. I was not aware of the linear assessment addition, and to be honest with you, I can't point to it on our monthly invoicing from them. So I'm afraid can't offer any help either. Councillor Dallas.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. If the current ATCO franchise rate does not pass, are we able to return it this evening with a separate motion with the new?
Yes, we have that option.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? So before us then, we have a motion that council keep the 2025 natural gas ATCO gas franchise fee for the city of Lacombe, the current rate of 29.5%. I'm sorry, did I not say that? Well, here I'm whittling away at it already. I forgot the 29.75, my apologies. 29.75%, how's that sound? Please go ahead and vote. I believe that item has been defeated by a margin of 6-1. Councillor Ross, so noted. Thank you. Councillor Hoekstra.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. I would like that council, let me just a second. suggests that the 2025 natural gas franchise fee for the city of Lacombe be at the rate of 29.25%. Not suggest, I don't know, whatever
Thank
word.
you. Anyone care to speak on that? I'm not totally certain that our IT team had those possibilities aboard, but they will be bringing those forward for our consideration. In the meantime, Councillor Dallas.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. Yes, thank you to those who spoke in favor of the median rate, and it was a very quick turnaround of thoughts for me, so I appreciate that.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. I don't want to put the acting CEO on the spot, but what's the difference in revenue? You probably don't.
20,000.
Is it 20K? Okay, thank you.
Coordinator Bellabono.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. We just wanted to clarify that the motion rate was 29.29% or
25.
25. Great, thank you.
What is it with fives tonight? Me too. So I believe we have before us the council sets the 2025 natural gas franchise fee for the city of Lacombe at the rate of 29.25%. As mover has indicated that is the correct wording. Any additional comments or concerns? Please proceed to vote. I believe that was passed by a margin of 6-1. All but Councillor Gullickson, which I expect wanted to see them much higher. So noted, Councillor Gullickson, thank you. Was there another one that we need to come into? Councillor Hibbs.
I gotcha. I move that council maintains the 2025 electricity FortisAlberta franchise fee for the city of Lacombe at the current rate of 17.63%.
Not seeing a bunch of input on this item. Seeing none, we can call the question. Please go ahead and vote. Very good. So it's not often that we have a system failure. Sometimes it takes a little bit for input, but in this particular case, we can adjust the minutes accordingly. And I would ask for a show of hands for all those in favor to indicate now. And any opposed? Councillor Gullickson, so noted by a margin of 6-1. That is passed. Thanks, everyone. Not even winter yet, and the computers are freezing. This is not. Okay. Next up then for request for decision, we will take the item that is labeled 6.5, and it was switched with item 6.2. So item 6.5 is bylaw 519, the McClear Block and Annex Historical Designation, presented by Manager Hackett, with the intent of second reading and perhaps third reading. And you have an assistant as well.
Thank you very much, Mayor Creasy, members of council. I think the system has unfroze, so that is good. I'm very pleased to be here tonight to present bylaw 519. With me is Miles Chakurta, the chairman of the Heritage Resource Committee for Lacombe. The purpose of bylaw 519 is to designate the McClear Block and Annex as a municipal historic resource. This building is located on lots B to D, Block 2, Plan 2790AJ in the downtown on lots 5006 to 5010 of 50th Avenue. And the owners have approached the City of Lacombe for municipal level designation. As council is aware, the Historic Resources Act of Alberta allows municipalities to designate locally significant buildings or places as municipal resources to protect these sites within their community. And Lacombe is very fortunate to have several municipally designated sites. So 13 are designated at present, and two more are on the agenda tonight for consideration. So that would, if both were passed, that would bring us to 15. The McClear Block, this is a photograph from around 1913 showing it in downtown. And this photograph shows how it looked in 2024, so earlier this year. This is the south facade. So the building has been restored, but many of the original traits and characteristics are still there. Anytime you'd like to jump in, feel free. I will go through the details of the structure. It is a small one-story annex connected to the west of the main McClear Block building. It's pressed red brick cladding and a central triangular pediment. Both buildings display storefronts with full-height glazing and brick corbelling. And the main building has retained the large pressed metal cornice that you can see in this photograph as well. In terms of some interesting history about this building, it's significant because of its association with local businessman Frank McClear. And so the building was built for Frank McClear by local contractor George P. Vickers between 1911 and 1912. And McClear had originally purchased the property and subdivided it into 4 lots. So he used one of the lots to build the main building and a second on the annex. And then he sold the east block to the Royal Bank and the west block to the jeweler and watchmaker C.R. Denneke. And if council will recall, last year, I believe it was, the Denneke block was designated a municipal historic resource. So those are 2 beside each other now that trace back to the same owner at this time. McClear opened a pool hall and tobacco shop on the west side of the building. And then when the First World War started, he moved his business into the basement, and a men's clothing store called Watt Hayes Gents Furnishings occupied the west side of the building. And that store remained in the same space from 1914 to 1990. So probably one of the longer businesses that ran in Lacombe. In May of this year, the Heritage Resources Committee unanimously voted to recommend support of the designation bylaw. And it is jointly recommended by administration tonight and the Heritage Resources Committee that council gives second and third reading to bylaw 519 as presented to designate the McClear Block and Annex as a municipal historic resource. Did I miss anything, Chairman? Thank you.
I might. Well, I do have 3 hours of lecture to give tomorrow, so. But I just wanted to add, I think we all need to recognize the owners here, with just like the Denneke Block, and a significant amount of time, energy, and money has gone into restoring this building and bringing it back to something that's absolutely beautiful. And within the heritage world, there certainly is some arguments and disagreements on purity, you could say. This one, for example, they put in new windows as part of the renovation. They're not original, but it still speaks to the intent of the building. It looks original, and
I mean, it's better than what was there because I think nothing in there in the window part was actually original. So this has brought now essentially a block of Lacombe, downtown Lacombe, back to life with some very vibrant and wonderful businesses that are doing a lot for us. So the HRC was absolutely pleased to give unanimous approval and thanks for, to the owners in getting this done. So we're very excited to see this building designated.
Thank you. Very good. Councillor Hoekstra.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. I would like to move the council give second reading to bylaw 519 as, as presented. I'm on the right one, right? 519.
Thank you. Councillor Dallas.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. I'm in support of this. I guess I'm just curious, and there is some financial support from the city for, I guess, or in the form of, is it grants or for maintaining these facilities? And I guess I'm curious how the budget for that looks as we continue to add these numbers of buildings on.
Well, I guess that'll be something I intend to raise at the budget talks, but currently what we offer is up to $5,000, which would be of matching funds. So and we've had 3 applications, I think, this year, so $15,000 will hopefully go out. And ultimately, it is stuff that's needed because when you have an older heritage building, some of the repairs just take a little bit more money, usually because you need a specialist there to do the work. And in the case of the Danicky block, when they had all the brickwork done, for instance, that was done by Scorpio Masonry, the same company that is restoring the legislature building in Edmonton. Right now, we're tracking pretty steady on the fund, on our Heritage Resource Fund. It's putting a little bit more in the pot every year, and it's just coming out at the same point. But absolutely, as time goes on and we get more buildings designated, that might have to go up a little bit, which isn't a bad thing in my view. It means people are caring about their historic buildings and such an integral part of Lacombe. We need that little bit of assistance there.
Thank you. So the motion as presented by Councillor Hoekstra, we're all clear, no additional input. Please go ahead and vote. So with respect to a second reading to bylaw 519, I saw a flash that looked primarily green, I believe. It is unanimously in favor. Councillor Hibbs.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. I think that it would not be very controversial to assume that we'll have support in this, that council resolves to consider the third reading of bylaw 519 at the same meeting as the second reading. I think it's outstanding that we have these many property owners downtown of heritage buildings that are willing to take care of them, improve them, and keep our downtown beautiful. And that this is one way that we're able to support that. And so I'm 100% behind this.
Thank you. Anyone else? So for consideration of third reading being a possibility this evening, please go ahead and vote. And that is unanimously in favor. Therefore, third reading is available for consideration the same meeting as second. Councillor Gullickson.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. I'd like to move that council gives third reading to bylaw 400.60 as presented. And I'd like to comment on it.
I was just going to say, I think perhaps you might have the wrong number designation. The intent was correct.
5. Sorry about that. The council give third reading to bylaw 519 as presented. Sorry about that. I was on the wrong page.
Thank you.
That happens quite often, by the way. I'd just like to say I've been at a number of these lately, and at the farmers market and coffee with council and speaking to people visiting our community. These buildings are extremely important to us and to our image around the province. So this is outstanding. And I look forward to this designation, and I will be there for sure. Thank you very much.
So the motion before us for third reading to bylaw 519. Any additional input? Please proceed to vote. And that is unanimously in favor as well. 6.2. Inventory. Okay, so this one. You get me in order here. So item 6.3 on your agendas, bylaw 400.60 for the land use bylaw amendment at 7102 52nd Street, site specific, before us for second reading and possibly third reading this evening. Manager Hackett, just give you a moment to get your notes in order. And when you're ready, the floor will be yours.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy, members of council. There may be some people in the hall who are just waiting on this item. So now would be the time for them to come back into the room. Bylaw amendment 4.60. Oh. My apologies. Bylaw amendment 400.60 proposes an amendment to the land use bylaw to add auto body and paint shop as a site exception to Unit 5, Plan 0628084, and remove it as a site exception on Unit 11 at that same legal description and address. As the existing business has relocated to the new unit, to Unit 5. Based on the use being an existing use operating on the property, albeit in a different bay, and operating without a record of any verified complaints, it is the recommendation of administration that council supports second and third reading of bylaw 400.60 this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Ross.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. I guess I have a few questions. When does a condominium board supersede a council's rezoning decision? Like there's countless condominium boards across, and using unit factors. I'm from the presentation tonight. I feel like this should be a discussion between the condominium board and the Unit 5 owner. As is this a judgment against the process that the Unit 5 owner did not follow as per the condominium board? Because it's and I guess I'm asking planning and development, like we have a condominium board that has a set of bylaws, and here we as council are dealing with a zoning that approves this, going to improve the tenant, when really I personally feel that this issue between the condominium board should be with that the unit owner did not follow process. I think this is a situation between the condominium board and the Unit 5 owner is a process, not really. I don't think it's against the applicant or the business. It was already existed within the property, and it's when does the condominium board or council's decision superseding a set of bylaws of a condominium board? That's where I'm.
Manager Hackett.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. Through to Councillor Ross. I guess the short answer to that is that a condominium board's bylaws do not supersede the land use bylaw with the matter of land use. And so any condominium board may have a bylaw that regulates various things that can occur, what color you can paint your unit, how big your dog can be if it's a residential condo, what kind of vehicles you can park or where you can park on site. But with regard to the land use bylaw, that's what's before us tonight is a consideration of a land use. And so the report before you has looked at the land use issues and compliance with our requirements under that UC zone and for this property. And we, council is not bound by the condominium bylaw. Thank you.
Thank you for recognizing that. Obviously, there was some difficulties with process amongst members of that board or ownership, whatever it may be. And quite frankly, that's not relevant for our decision here today. All we are tasked with here is to consider this site-specific use. And I want to make that perfectly clear. However this goes, I mean, there may or may not be legal ramifications on the agreement that they have, and that's, quite frankly, is not the concern of council. That is for the board and its members as they exist to deal with as they see fit. We had lots of very passionate input about the individual, and as supportive as that is for the proponent here, it's rather irrelevant for our purposes in this decision, in my opinion. I look forward to seeing how this goes. It's unfortunate when due process isn't followed because it does create difficulties on many different levels, whether it's at the municipality, on a board, or any other organization that many of us belong to. It really does make things difficult. That's why we have rules. Is they make existing together a much more enjoyable and smoother process. So while unfortunate as that is, our decision here is for a site-specific variance as outlined in our package. Councillor Hoekstra.
Thanks, Mayor Creasy, and thank you for that excellent explanation. So I was wanting to move that council gives second reading to bylaw 400.60 as presented. I too wanted to make the comment that I support this because I remember the conversation very clearly last time, and we made that exception last time when it faced residential properties. And so when this first came through, I thought, well, this is a better move for that community in terms of where this business is now located. So I too am troubled by the difficulties that they're having in terms of their condominium, but I appreciate the mayor's words that in terms of zoning, we zoned it once on one side of the building, and I'm in support of zoning it on the other side of the building. So I would like to make that motion.
Thank you, Councillor Dallas.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. Thanks to all those who took the time to be here and engage with us and provide your feedback. We have been through this before, not necessarily just with this tenant, but there's been other organizations in the city who we've found operating and have come through this zoning change request. And it's unfortunate that we're not able to catch these sooner and deal with them before the businesses and organizations begin operations. But unfortunately, this is not new. As far as I'm concerned, I see no real issues with this change from a city perspective. Our administration has not identified any concerns that would warrant us to say no. And we know they're experienced and qualified to supply their thoughts on these. Alberta Health Services has also said there are no health concerns in the region for this facility, which is of importance when making these decisions as well. I've read the letter requesting a no vote and now heard from the condo members stating condo bylaw concerns and their due process. However, the city is not in the business of policing private bylaws, and this is an issue for the property owners and tenants to settle. So I will be supporting this. Thank you.
Councillor Hibbs.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. Just a little question actually for the condo board. Was there errors on the city's part? That wasn't clear to me if they were suggesting that there were errors on the city's part in this process.
Mayor Creasy, through to Councillor Hibbs, I don't believe so, but certainly I would let them identify that if they felt there was any errors. Because we'd like to work with them in the future.
Mr. Pearson, so just so the council is clear, your role with the condominium board is what exactly?
For the Lacombe Business Center.
Thank you.
And from our perspective, yes, there was several things on the city side that were incorrectly done. There wasn't due diligence on the city side when a business permit was issued. And I do understand that Daryl, thought, well, if I've got my business license, then we can run with it. But business license wasn't all that was needed on the city side for permitting. And some of the other permitting on the city side would have triggered more due diligence. It would have notified the condo board of what was going to transpire. And there would have been, some conversations up front. That didn't occur. And there was, there's a couple things. I mean, we're requesting to move it from one unit to another, where the first unit that it was on, they haven't been represented. They haven't made part of that request. So it's what has been done from the city side. There's some legal glitches with it on our perspective. But what we were looking for is that this go through due process with the city, get a development permit, get the things on the table that need to be done. If there's additional fire suppression, if there's additional things that need to be done, that was our concern with it. And yes, I think, by issuing a business license without any due diligence or any other permits in place, I think that was a fairly large oversight on the city's part.
Thank you. Did you have something to add, Manager Hackett?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Creasy. That is correct. I had neglected to mention that a business license was issued for Unit 5 earlier this year at the request of FSK. It was issued in error, so we certainly take responsibility for that due to new staff and software not recognizing the unit number change. So it came across their desk and they thought it was a renewal. And the system recognized it as a renewal for an existing business, but didn't recognize that the unit number had changed. So that did, I guess, begin the issue for us of recognizing that a rezoning was needed. So this step of a rezoning is required regardless for a development permit. So we haven't, if council approves the change to the land use bylaw tonight, FSK would still be required to come forward for a development permit. It is discretionary. They may or may not get that permit. And so the condo board will be involved and notified of a development permit coming forward and able to provide their comments for conditions at that time of a development permit. So this is really the first step in the process. It's not a final decision. It's the zoning decision. The development decision would follow it. But we have resolved the issues with the business license software, and it is resolved. We've added notes to the software, so it should not happen that we issue a business license in error in the future.
Thank you for that, Manager Hackett. As much as we strive for perfection, mistakes happen. I appreciate you owning up to them as a department and making the necessary changes. It may have been a little more impactful in this particular instance than what one would have expected, but that's all we can do is go about the due process and try and make it right. Most important part of that statement was there is still a development required for this new location, correct?
That is correct, Mayor Creasy. So no development permit could be issued at this time because the zoning is not in place for this unit. If council did approve the zoning in place, then the next step is to apply for a development permit and all of the building permits if required.
Okay.
May I continue?
Certainly, do you have additional questions, Councillor Hibbs?
I do. Yes, thank you.
Yep, go ahead.
So I appreciate that clarification because that was kind of what I was getting at is I think that where there was some error on our part. And then also I appreciate that the process has been outlined a little bit better. This is only an initial step. I do have one more question about this initial step when it comes to the rezoning specifically. In our bylaws or our processes, who is appropriate to be actually applying for the rezoning? Is it the property owner? Is it the business owner? Is it either? Could it be another body, like not necessarily a condo board, but let's just throw that out there. Who actually is responsible to bring that forward? I'm just curious because I feel like a rezoning, I'm not sure that a business owner, not a property, I'm not sure that it's a business owner's role to apply for rezoning. To me, it really should be the property owner applying for rezoning. So if you could clarify that point, please.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy, through to Councillor Hibbs. So under Part 5 of the land use bylaw, it does talk about initiating an amendment and who can initiate an amendment. So firstly, council may on its own initiative amend the land use bylaw. Secondly, an application to amend the bylaw can be made by any person or organization by making an application on the form to the city. And there is requirements of outlining what is requested, the reasons, that the type of land use change. And then if the applicant, in addition, the applicant can withdraw that at any time. Normally, we require that the owner, if the applicant is not the owner of the lands, a letter from the owner granting permission for or acknowledgement of the application is required.
And you have that on file in this case?
I will let Development Officer Kirk answer that.
Yes, we have authorization from the unit owner for this application.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, so I understand that this is really complicated and it's kind of clunky and it got way too messy. I will be supporting this reading and third reading should it go to that, only because I realize that this is not the final step. I believe that this is our role here that we're being asked to do. I believe that this is the right thing to do because we've honestly already done this and we found that there was no problem. It was a one-of, but it was a one-of for a reason. So yeah, I just want to be really clear that this isn't necessarily the end of the story. Unfortunately, this is going to go on for the people that are involved in this. But from our perspective, this is the one thing that we're ruling on, and I am in support.
Councillor Ross.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. I do agree. We have a purpose of rezoning. That is our decision based tonight. But I think there is a lot of communication that could have been far more streamlined. But my one question is, when you pull an address for a business permit, does it identify that that specific address has a condo board that would thus then create another party? That no, a condo board has their own bylaws for consistencies and uniformity with, within that board, and it's a unit share unanimous decision. So when you gave that business license to that address, did it identify as being affiliated with the condo board?
Mayor Creasy, through to Councillor Ross, business licenses are handled by a different department, so I am not sure what is required on the form. So I do not know if it identified in a condo. The land title does not identify that it is a condominium. So from the planning application, when we have the land title, it says Unit 11, but it does not identify who the condominium board is. It identifies only the unit.
Pardon me, but if interrupts, isn't the land title number that on the title identifies a condo by the title number? Because in real estate, your title number identifies a specific condo. I think that statement's incorrect.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy, through to Councillor Ross. The title does identify that it is a condominium unit. Yes, that it's the unit number, but it doesn't list the address of the condominium board or list their bylaws. So we didn't have access to the condominium board's bylaws through the land title.
Or in fact, whether or not a condominium board even existed for any given property.
We would assume they have to have a board, but how to reach that board?
Okay.
Based on the title, it's not listed on the title.
Thank you. Councillor Gullickson.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. I'll also be supporting this because I don't think it's our business what the condo board does. But in this case, looking at the list, I believe he's renting from a condo board member, is he not? But it doesn't matter. I think that the owner of the property should have notified the board, not have anything to do with the city. The city is just taking the application. Wherever this goes, I hope we don't lose this business. I think he did talk originally when he moved into that property. If he ever got bigger, he would be moving to the industrial area. I think that was one of the comments. So I hope if anything happens here and he's not able to move into this bay for whatever reason, he'll stay in Lacombe because obviously he provides good customer service and I'd like him to stay in town. So I appreciate what you do up there and I will be voting for this. And I think that the owner of the property should have notified the board about the move.
Thank you, Councillor Connick.
Thank you, Mayor Chrissy. Yeah, I too will support this. I think it's unfortunate the level of communication broke down. I don't want to point fingers, but it's been alluded to a few times that this is where, when you're part of a condo board, whether it's a residential or commercial entity, one really needs to participate on the condo board meetings and so forth and let people know what's going on. And it's just that type of miscommunication. Unfortunately, there's some breakdowns there, but I would echo Councillor Gullickson's comment. It'd be unfortunate for this business to leave. And my big takeaway about the presentation was wondering about the red onion and what I missed. But anyways, that's.
So I was just curious, in your opinion, assuming this item does come for a development permit, is it liable to go to MPC or no?
Depending on if we do get opposition from the circulation, it could go to MPC. If we get just support, then the development officer has the authority to issue that development permit without going to MPC.
Thank you for outlining that. I think it's important for those present to understand that process and some of the additional layers of responsibility that exist. So regardless of how that further decision could or could not go, it may end up being back before council or SDAB anyway. So yes, not to suggest that the work that we do here is more important for that building than what the condo does. The condo board does. It's just different what we do here. And I, in fact, will be supporting this as well in the hopes that all parties involved can come to a more amenable agreement here and make sure that the steps are followed correctly. Some of them obviously are substantially out of order, but when it's all said and done, that everybody can do things the way they're supposed to be done and have a good coexistence there, because there are a lot of very valued businesses in that building, and certainly hope that it can continue to be that way. I believe the motion is before us now that council gives second reading to bylaw 400.60 as presented. Councillor Ross.
I was just wondering, did Councillor Hoekstra make the meeting? I'm sorry. Thank you. It's been a while. My apologies.
Any additional input? Please go ahead and vote. With respect to second reading for bylaw 400.60 as presented, that is upheld unanimously. In favor?
Sorry.
Councillor Hoekstra.
I'd like to make a motion that council resolves to consider the third reading of bylaw 400.60 at the same meeting as the second reading.
Thank you. Coordinator Bellabono, is there any special requirements to pass that for this type of a motion?
No, the motion just needs to be unanimous. Unanimous vote.
Not just needs to be, yes. So everybody's aware of that. Okay. Not seeing a lot of other lights on here. Please proceed to vote. Unanimously, that is approved for consideration of third reading as at the same meeting as second. Councillor Konik.
Now it's a move that council gives third reading to bylaw 400.60 as presented.
Thank you. No final comments? Please proceed to vote. And that is unanimous in favor as well. Our planning and development department, I expect, will be in contact with business owner or the land or the condominium owner. Which is it for further steps?
The business owner for the further steps, as they are the applicant. And then once we move on to the development permit referral, then the condo board will be notified again.
Appreciate that clarification. Development Officer Kirk, thank you. Very good. Item 6.4, bylaw 518, the Garland Residence Municipal Historic Designation, before us for second reading and possibly third reading as well. Manager Hackett, the floor is once again yours.
Thank you very much, Mayor Creasy. I'm very pleased tonight to present our second municipal historic resource designation, bylaw 518. I believe our chair of our Heritage Resource Committee had to go, but I'm joined by Senior Development Officer Kirk, who is the liaison to the Heritage Resource Committee. Bylaw 518 would designate the Garland Residence as a municipal historic resource. This building is located on Lot A, Plan 8396 AM, and that's at 5204 53rd Street. And again, the owners have approached the city for municipal level designation. So as I said earlier, Lacombe is very fortunate to have several municipally designated sites, updated to 14 designated sites now, and this would be number 15 in progress. The Garland Residence is shown here in the forefront of this historic photo around 1913. And this is how the building, the home appears today in 2024. It is an arts and crafts style residence. It's 1.5 stories. It has the front gables, which are really a prominent feature, as well as the bell cast roof line. There are a variety of shingle types. And also of note in the character defining elements is the full width porch on the front. It is noted that the kitchen, garage, and sections at the rear of the home, including the south-facing porch and carport, have been renovated over time, but the additions were done using the same types of siding materials as the original home to try and be as sensitive to the character of the home as possible. Very interesting history of this property as well. The Garland residence is really a symbol of the quality residences built in Lacombe during its economic boom between 1905 and 1913. And Mr. Delmer Garland constructed the residence in 1913 after purchasing the land from the Presbyterian Church. He owned the home for approximately 10 years until 1923, after which it was sold to James Richardson. And the house remains intact as one of the earlier surviving homes or extant homes in Lacombe. And on May 29th, 2024, the Heritage Resources Committee voted unanimously to recommend support of the designation bylaw. And so it is jointly recommended between administration and the Heritage Resource Committee that Council give second and third reading to bylaw 518 as presented to designate the Garland residence as a municipal historic resource. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hoekstra.
Thanks, Mayor Creasy. I'd like to move that council give second reading to bylaw 518 as presented. And I do want to make one comment that I should have made earlier when Miles was here, but the documents that you give us in our package, I'm assuming that comes from the Heritage Resources Committee about the whole building. I really appreciate it. I like reading them. So please pass on thanks for those excellent documents.
Councillor Connick.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. The only thing I wanted to make comment, I think it's wonderful, as many have mentioned, that these older buildings are coming on, excuse me, for municipal designation, but the fact that they were getting more residences, I think is amazing. And then there's so many more yet that could possibly, so I think that's exciting. So.
Very good. Anyone else? With respect to a second reading for bylaw 518 as presented, please proceed to vote. That is supported unanimously for second reading. Councillor Hibbs.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. I'd move that council resolves to consider third reading of bylaw 518 at the same meeting as the second reading.
Thank you. Anyone? Please proceed to vote. And that is passed unanimously. Validating that possibility, Councillor Dallas.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. I'd like to make the motion that council give third reading to bylaw 518 as presented.
Thank you. Anyone care to add anything? Please vote. And no surprise, that is unanimously in favor as well. Thank you both. Six. Two. It's just for the list itself, yeah. Exactly. I shouldn't have chased the both of you away so quickly. We do have item 6.2 is listed on our agenda, which will be up now, is the historical buildings list, bylaw 400.61 land use bylaw amendment for the municipal heritage inventory. Before us for second and possibly third reading. Manager Hackett, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy, members of council. Bylaw amendment 400.61 proposes to update table 14.5.1 in the heritage section of the land use bylaw to reflect that 4 buildings now that are currently listed on the inventory list have now received the higher level of recognition as municipally designated resources. The intent of the table in 1451 is to be very transparent about which buildings have been recognized for historic significance. And so keeping that list up to date is helpful to the property owners current and in the future, as well to the general public who might be interested in Lacomb's historic buildings. For this reason, it is recommended that council consider second and third reading of bylaw amendment 400.61 as presented. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hoekstra.
I'd like to move that council give second reading to bylaw 400.61 as presented.
I can honestly say I've never seen a race for the button like that. That's good. Thank you, Councillor Hoekstra. Does anyone have anything to add? Please proceed to vote. So second reading for bylaw 400.61 is passed unanimously. Councillor Ross.
I would do 2A, that council resolves to consider the third reading of bylaw 400.61 at the same meeting as second reading.
Thank you. Not a lot of lights on there, so please proceed to vote. And that is unanimously in favor, which is required to validate it. And we have the possibility of third reading. Councillor Hoekstra.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. I'd like to move that council give third reading to bylaw 400.61 as presented.
Thank you. Please go ahead and vote. Mr. Tomnick, thank you for the quick fire motions on the machines. We appreciate you being on top of things. Thank you. I believe that was unanimously in favor. Yes, it is. And therefore adopted for third reading to bylaw 400.61. Thanks, everybody. Director Thompson, can you give us an idea of time involved in presentation of the update for the fleet lease pilot program?
2 minutes and 30 seconds.
That was extremely accurate. So therefore, given that, I think that we can proceed. Actually, you know what? We do have some more items after that. So I think we might just as well entertain another motion for continuation of the meeting if otherwise we're not going to be in. Yeah. Councillor Dallas.
Thank you, Mayor Casey. I'd like to make the motion to extend the meeting beyond 9 p.m.
Thank you. We'll just give IT a moment to change that item rather than doing it at the last minute, though I think it's appropriate to handle it now and have it taken care of. I think in order just to give IT a moment, I'll go through our next meetings that you can add to your calendars. Monday, October 7th, Committee of the Whole meeting here in Chambers at 5:30. And that meeting will be chaired by the Deputy Mayor. Correct. By Councillor Hibbs, thank you. And the next meeting is on Tuesday, October 15th, regular council meeting, same time and place, 5:30 p.m. here. And then again on Monday, at the end of the month, October 28th, the organization and additionally the regular council meeting scheduled to start here at 5:30 as well. And on your tablets before you is the motion that the council meeting can proceed past 9 p.m. Please vote. You have to reserve me a cell. Councillor Gullickson voted in favor as well, so we will proceed past 9 p.m. on something that critical. We need to move on. So appreciate everybody. And Director Thompson, the fleet lease pilot program, 1 year update. Floor is yours.
Thanks, Mayor Christie, and good evening, Council. So this evening, Council heard the presentation from Enterprise Fleet Management on the pilot program. What you saw tonight was very indicative of the type of relationship that we've developed over the last year through the pilot program. Those two individuals have been a part of the program, and when we embarked on analyzing or developing this pilot program with them and ultimately getting council's approval, there was a number of areas of uncertainty on our end. They had pitched a program that ultimately would save the city significant amount of money over the long term, and then amongst that, in addition to their customer service and their ability to acquire vehicles quickly and pivot based on different resale strategies, certainly was advantageous. I can say that 1 year in, they are definitely showing that they're experts in the field. They're able to provide a level of analysis of our fleet that we have never been able to achieve in the past. And their customer service and vehicle acquisition process is top notch. So in terms of all of that, we have nothing but good things to say. One of the measures of success that we committed to reporting back to council was that the cost of these vehicles based on compared to similar vehicles under the pilot program and outside of the pilot program needed to be the same or lower in order for it to be successful. And right now, with the 6 vehicles that we purchased, the costs are higher than we'd expect from vehicles outside of the pilot program. This is primarily due to the when we sold 6 older vehicles, there was hardly any equity in them to roll over and kind of offset the lease costs of these new 6 vehicles. And so right now, our lease costs for those 6 are $94,000 a year. We'd expect something closer to mid-80s for those vehicles. However, when we're looking at the next cycle, when we sell these vehicles at the optimal time, as Enterprise would analyze and help us determine, we would expect the next generation to be somewhere in the range of 70,000, which is below what we'd expect. And so we do think that the next iteration bottom line cost will be cheaper. That is not the case right now because we don't have the equity in the lease system to kind of offset those costs. And the advantages of Enterprise are buying vehicles at a cheaper rate and selling them at a higher rate, and then rolling that equity over into an ongoing kind of lease program and bringing costs down. So that's our report. It's for information now. They had mentioned today an opportunity to expand the program to take advantage of lease incentives offered by Chevy. We are following up with them on the costs of doing so, and we'll be bringing forward an option during the budget deliberations for council's consideration. So Mayor Christie and Council, that's my report on the pilot program so far.
Appreciate that, Director Thompson. So given that the overall benefit of this entire program is cost savings, how is it that these providers make money? They obviously are not doing it for free. So let's be transparent here. How is it that they make their money?
Well, certainly we lease the vehicle, and there's a lease percentage on the vehicle.
From that organization.
From that organization. Very good. And so they make money on that. There's a very small management fee on it. It's something like less than 0.5%. It's very small, but it's there. And so they make money on that as well.
And as I stated, I don't think there's anybody that's under the impression they're doing it for the joy of it. Obviously, they have to make money. That's fine. I do, however, appreciate the fact they're looking at the overall picture of the vehicle ownership, not just the provision of that, the provision of that vehicle over the long term. I do like that part. and the fact that we can still involve local dealerships for the sale process and parts provision and that kind of thing, to me is attractive. I expect that any other council members hear from members of the public as I do. Some who might not see the fact that I would suggest a fairly new fleet and question the costs of it. But with programs like this, I think we're able to accomplish both a good operating newer fleet at lower cost, and that is important. I can justify that, not just the mere fact of having some ceramic metal. So appreciate the work that's went into it. Thank you. Councillor Koenig.
Yeah, I was impressed with the presentation. And it intrigued me, and I think like any lease program, yeah, you have to give it some time to really see the dividends in, but it makes sense really if you're turning those vehicles over quickly enough that there's some of that equity left. So I think long term, I think there's benefits too, but we have to let it play out to see it in the long term. I think it's too on 1 year, it's too hard to. But it was intriguing. It was nothing against the ATCO presentation, but it was more interesting than the ATCO.
So that was just an update. Does anybody care to move for acceptance or no? We're good. Move on, they say. Move on. That's fine. Next up, Director Thompson, Wolf Creek maintenance update.
Yes, so council may or may not be aware, but Lacombe maintains portions of Wolf Creek from its headwaters all the way to the Highway 604 overpass on Highway 2. This responsibility was assumed by Lacombe, I guess, formally in the most recent grant agreements between the province and the town of Lacombe from 1979 and 1982. But there are references to the town maintaining Wolf Creek that go back to before Alberta was a province. And so flood control, particularly in the area of kind of east of 2 and 12, was something that has been on the minds of former councillors for a long time. So this responsibility has been in place for a long time. In 2012, I believe, we adopted a policy to establish a maintenance schedule for the maintenance of Wolf Creek. And that primarily involves, in the wintertime, assessing the section of Wolf Creek for any obstructions or issues that would impede flow. And then if there are those that are identified, then we would have an excavator mobilize the site. We would clear out any of that, primarily it's vegetation overgrowth. And then, and that would be it. Over the years, it has become more and more difficult to absorb that work into our yearly work plan. When we look at the history and our intentions of what we were meant to do along Wolf Creek versus what we've been able to accomplish, it's spotty at best. And I will say that's not because of like lack of will. It's due to when our crews are busy in the wintertime doing work in town, clearing snow, they're prioritizing work within the city boundaries. And so the work outside the city boundaries has taken a backseat. And for many years, that has been the case. Last year, council approved additional funding to have a contractor supplement our own efforts to do this work. And so this year, we have a contractor doing the work, and that budget request will continue for next year to supplement our own forces to be able to maintain this obligation. Now, the exact what maintenance means and what level of service the city provides to maintaining the creek is something that is not specified in our obligation, just that we have an obligation to maintain. And so what we're saying now is that we have a policy in place that we're not able to adhere to, and we would like to update this policy So it's aligned with not only council's expectations, but with our ability to do that work. And so we're seeking council's direction on what direction we would like to go with that updated policy. And so we provided several options for council's consideration. One is to continue on the same path. This is option number one, meaning we'll continue to prioritize or to continue to schedule maintenance. Likely, though, it will over time mean more and more of that work is being supplemented by contracted services. Option two is to take a responsive approach to the portions of Wolf Creek outside our boundary. And that way we are actively scheduling work within the city of Lacombe and having our forces do proactive maintenance work within the boundaries of Lacombe. But then creek maintenance outside of Lacombe would be only done on a reactive basis. Like if there's an issue that's been identified where the creek is being obstructed in some significant way, only then would we schedule the work and take action accordingly. Option 2B is similar to the first one, but we would approach Lacombe County and engage with them to assume control of maintenance responsibility of Wolf Creek outside of the city of Lacombe limits. And option 3 is to pursue a designation of Wolf Creek as a naturalized area through Alberta Environment and Parks. This is an option. It's not commonly done. We're told it's available. Basically what that means is we go through a regulatory process, have the creek assessed by professional biologists, and then they will make a determination on whether that creek can be considered naturalized, which means there is no formal maintenance responsibility required of it. It's just a natural water body that exists in the province. And so those are 3 options for council. We are recommending option 2A, which is the responsible approach outside of Lacombe city boundaries. We think that is achievable and still maintains our overall obligation, but focuses our proactive efforts to within the city of Lacombe. And that, Mayor Creasy, is my presentation.
Appreciate that, Director Thompson. Councillor Ross.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. Like, it seems bizarre that we're taking responsibility outside of the city. Like, at the very minimum, it's got to be some benefit to county residents by us maintaining it. So to me, it's at the very least, there should be a joint cost. And or if not, like with us being to the wastewater management, our runoff is really going back to wastewater, is it not? Am I wrong?
No, wastewater is just for exactly that wastewater. The rainwater runoff is primarily handled through city infrastructure, taking it directly to Wolf Creek. Anything additional? Councillor Gullickson.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. Director Thompson, I just, the idea of this obviously was to protect Lacombe from flooding, was the original thoughts behind that. Now, would you say that a lot of your blockage is caused by beaver activity? And because I know north of 604, there's a lot of beaver activity that affects that creek. And I believe if we stop doing it, they will come down and cause potential flooding into the city of Lacombe. So I do have concerns with us stopping this or even giving it to somebody else. I think we should at least be monitoring it to make sure that there isn't potential for the spring and find out there's a beaver dam blocking the creek after the fact and go, oh, we should have known that. So I do believe we should have some responsibility to it. I'm not sure it needs to be that far up to 604, but I do have concerns with flooding as we've all seen it happen before. Maybe not by beavers, but by ice jams. So it certainly is a concern of mine.
Councillor Hibbs.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. Just a couple questions. Who actually is responsible for the portion before the city, so south of the city? And is it actually being maintained?
There is a portion south of the city that the city is responsible for as well. the headwaters of Wolf Creek are kind of right at the south of the city. So a couple channels kind of converge and form Wolf Creek just south of the city. And so it's the headwaters of Wolf Creek there.
That is literally the headwaters right there.
Literally,
Oh, interesting. I did not realize that. Sorry. And then I assume that we are responsible for, that more north portion, because as the water flows out, we want it to be able to escape out of the city quickly. And so the idea would be those are trenched and passable, and that water's evacuating from our. Did we get some sort of, it talked about a grant agreement or something in the memo? Was there some sort of financial compensation at one point ever? Like why on earth would we have taken this on, I guess is my question.
That's a good question. As far as I can tell, there wasn't operating funds to offset costs at the time. There's the creek is important for Lacombe for two reasons. One, for it conveys all of our storm water. That's where it goes and toward the Battle River. The other one, when we had our lagoon system, all of our wastewater was treated in the lagoons and then released into that creek too, once it was safe to do so. And so for a number of years, this creek has been really important for Lacombe. Of course, as was mentioned, we are now part of the regional system, so our wastewater doesn't get released into the creek anymore. And the Wolf Creek, every municipality in the Wolf Creek River Basin has adopted stormwater management guidelines that reduces the runoff from their municipalities to say the current development levels. And so the impact on the creek in terms of flooding generated by municipal uses has been significantly mitigated over time. And so that was one of our arguments and with the province to say, why are we still responsible for this? They have said now, well, that's nice, but in 1979 and 1982, you said you were going to maintain this thing, and that still holds true to today. And so the answer is why? Because we said we would do it at one point. If I was in their shoes, in the administrator's shoes, and why we would accept that? Probably desperate for a project, and said, yeah, we can take that on, is my guess. But that's speculation. Nothing that I've seen on the historical and the records that I've reviewed speaks to that any more than what's on the grant agreement.
And then just one last question. So obviously maintaining this creek requires a lot of traversing of private land, both within the city and also out in the county. Has that ever become a problem where there's we're inheriting some risk there, that we're opening ourselves up to a problem, if that makes sense?
Yeah, I'd have to talk to our roads manager to see if that's actually been an issue. I know in some instances we have to traverse up the creek, along the creek legal boundary proper to get to a location. We've had issues where our excavator has fallen in and into certain areas where they're softer than others and caused damage and repair. And so in terms of landowner issues, I would have to go back and find out if we've had landowner issues or access issues in the past.
Councillor Konik.
Thank you, Mayor Christie. I'm with Councillor Gullickson on this. I think we still need to be, as the memo has indicated, a responsive approach outside city boundaries, because the minute we don't, we just say, even though we're not putting as much water as you mentioned into that creek as we have in the past, it could come back to bite us at some point. I mean, just keep an eye on it, and somebody comes in with a blockage, maybe we should take care of it. And so I'm prepared to make that motion. The council directs administration to update the Wolf Creek maintenance policy following options 2A, responsive approach outside of city boundaries.
Councillor Dallas.
Thank you. Yeah, I agree that option 2A seems sustainable for now. I feel we do have responsibility. I would be interested in asking administration to investigate pursuing it as a natural designation, and then at least in doing so, we could have some new defined responsibility, whether it is either we don't have any responsibility for it or we do have defined responsibility on it. So that's my thoughts on that.
This has been a bit of a thorn for me for several years, this is the only way for stormwater to leave our community, for all intents and purposes, is through this drainage area. The divide is basically south of Lacombe, like a couple of miles, and all the water this side runs the Battle, and the other direction goes towards the Blind Men area into the Red Deer. So it's something that we have to do. We've got a lot of areas of our community that rely on that drainage. Not only do I think that we need to continue with it, monitoring and addressing problem areas north of the community, but we need to step up maintenance within our boundaries, especially on a year like this, because it is far easier to accomplish on a low water dry year than ever. And I think that our dollars will go a little further than they normally do. We've got some problematic areas on that drainage, which are at the CP Railroad crossing, then at the highway QE2, which have proven to be problematic in the past for pinch points for the drainage. So we need to do our part. The rest of it come as it may, but the liability will go where it's appropriate. We still need to do our part and make sure it's up to date. So that's why I'm certainly in support of 2A, as well as stepping up our maintenance within the community and ensuring that all areas leading up to our outer boundaries are well maintained, which currently, for being honest, they are not. Anyone else? I think on your machines, the motion is another light on. Go ahead, Councillor Dallas.
Thank you. My apologies, because I've actually never looked at the creek. I just kind of drive over it and ignore it. Is there water in it year round and a hint of flow?
I think that's a fair assessment.
Yeah. Okay. Yep. Okay, that was just for personal knowledge. Thank you for humoring me.
Yep. Certainly spring and rain flow substantially more, but some flow, I would suggest, all year round. Yep. Yeah. So the motion before us, that council directs administration to update the Wolf Creek maintenance policy following option 2A, a responsive approach outside of city boundaries. Please go ahead and vote. And that is unanimously supported and passed. Thank you. This evening, we do not have any in-camera items, so I think that concludes our business for this evening. Councillor Hoekstra.
I move to adjourn.
Thank you. All those in favor of adjournment? And we can just wait for our on-air light to go off here before we.
Yes, yes, vote. Who's doing what? I don't know if you want to leave your